Well met, traveler. Welcome to the New World, a D&D podcast. I'm Anistrae, one of the players in this campaign, and I'm here with Ridersel, our DM, and MusicSquid, another player in this campaign. So, to provide some context, we actually didn't consider recording our sessions until recently, so we are here today to recap on episodes 1, 2, and 3, just to help you get up to speed with why our characters are doing what they're currently doing. Now, without further ado, let's begin. We are going to talk about episode 1, the very first day that we all met. Okay, not really, but at this point in time, the only thing we know is that Evetta and Seth had only known each other for about a week, and Zara's a mystery, Dag's a mystery. Dag is not even, met until much later.
Right at the end of episode 1, yeah.
Basically, yeah, at the very, very end of episode 1. So let's go ahead and talk about what we actually did in episode 1.
No.
Oh, okay.
Did you prepare for that?
I did not. But you got me there.
Right, so most of, I think, what you have in the outline is correct. It started with Zara arriving in port to a town called Hradenfar, where she would eventually meet, Seth and Evetta, and Zara would introduce themselves. We learned that Zara is, well-groomed.
Oh yeah, I guess we should actually go over how the characters look at this point.
Yeah, we can also
set
the scene of Hradenfar itself, which is this sort of I wouldn't say idyllic countryside town, but this sort of far off village, not exactly a city or a town, but just I think you said it's 500 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
it's
a
a
port.
large town.
Yeah, a sizable
port town.
Yeah, a sizable port town with access directly to I assume any other port town in either the New World or the Old World can basically access it, which probably makes it ideal for gaining entrance into the New World.
Yeah,
not that that'll come up ever.
I actually kind of expected Hradenfar to be somewhat of a trade city because of that aspect that it had. It had an upper leg against other cities that were landlocked and stuff with trade, but
it definitely has the perfect spot in a way for being a port town.
Mm-hmm.
It's got close. It's in the center, right? So it's close to. Center as in just horizontally wise, not vertically. It's just horizontally centered on the continent. So it's almost equal distance from the towns to the east and to the west. In terms of land trade, it has that sort of advantage, as opposed to Dason, which is all the way on the east side, and so it would have to spend more resources if it wanted to make contact or do trade all the way to the west. Not that that's in Dason's current goals, not that that's within their reach per se, but if they wanted to, they would just have to they have to spend more resources, right?
Yeah.
In terms of being a port town, it has probably the best spot, because the way the land is, the continent is shaped, means that Hradenfar is actually the only town to have a gulf. So that means that the ships they're not at the direct wrath of the ocean, right?
Yeah.
They're in a gulf, so it's sort of protected by land.
Yeah, you have to take smaller boats in. You can't just bring in a warship because it'll beach itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that aside, Hradenfar is also, because of that, it kind of lends itself to being a good town to disappear in a weird way, since there's a lot of people focus on trading. Yeah, it's the best town to sort of disappear in.
I do find it interesting that when Zara first got off of the boat, that was the very first person that Seth gravitated to, and I could not figure out what the explanation was at the time. Was there really an explanation for that?
So yeah, Zara's a PC, so therefore no, but I will say Zara was she was the only person that was like in chainmail and had like a sword and a shield, and just appearance wise just stood out.
Yeah.
I see.
She was like wearing like armor and all these ornaments on. Other people who walked out the boat were just look like other fishermen or just regular worker citizens wearing regular worker garbs or like overalls or things like that. And of course, Seth might have other reasons.
I was gonna say, yeah, I can sort of, speaking from like Seth's point of view, like the obvious like meta reasons why Zara stood out. Like Seth sort of has an eye for like interesting looking people. It's sort of like he is constantly sort of just like subconsciously almost, I'll say, sort of like evaluating the way that people look and how they present themselves, because like you can sort of get a read on a person based on how they put themselves out there, and sort of like not just like what they're wearing, but also just sort of like the way that they carry themselves. And I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that like paladins sort of like both literally and like sort of like metaphorically have like an aura about them. Like paladins carry themselves in like a very specific sort of way. Seth also, like, being like a religious person who like studied like that kind of thing, like he sees somebody step off who's clear, like he could recognize as a paladin. It just sort of like piques his interest, especially because I think at that time I had recognized that the boat was from the old world. So seeing an old world paladin show up out of nowhere, like on essentially like a trade vessel, more or less, like this is somebody who had specifically left wherever they were. Like this is a person with a story, right? Like this is a person who like has come here either like with a specific goal or who is trying to like get away from something. And like Seps can kind of pick up on those vibes from people. So from his perspective, he sees this person and it's just sort of like, that's interesting. I want to know what's going on over there. Like I need to like figure this out. Because there's like, it's a combination of like some of that sort of like mirroring the way that he sort of feels about himself, and then also just wanting to like learn about new people, like that kind of thing.
I see, that
like,
makes sense.
Yeah. It's also probably part of the reason, like one of the reasons like why he sort of like gravitated towards Evetta as well. Just sort of like his whole, because it like if we want to break it down, like why mechanically it plays into how he like views people narratively, because he's a charisma based person. It's not just like, you know, looks and talking, it's about just like the way that people are. And so he's very sort of like in tune to how people sort of come off about themselves. And I feel like that's sort of like, at least for me, I'm justifying like why the party sort of fell together, at least from Seb's point of view, is he just wants to like gather these people that sort of intrigue him, more or less.
Yeah, I honestly haven't really gotten too far on how Evetta even came across Seth in the first place, because you know, initially she wasn't in Hradenfar, so it took some time for her to finally appear and to then be under like mentorship.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of to sort of go over that, because we kind of skipped around it. But in Hradenfar, you have Seth, my character, and Evetta, your character. And we've been in this town for a little bit. Me longer than you. Seth had been there for about, I think we said it was like a month and a half. Long enough to like become a full-fledged citizen, own a home, which he's very proud of. Hope nothing ever happens to it. And and like about a week from where the story sort of takes place, Seth meets Evetta in some fashion, and I'm happy to workshop that. We are sort of describing like the events that lead up to the first session, so we can workshop that. That sounds fun to me. But so like you said, I sort of took it, like Seth took Evetta under his wing because he sees this young fledgling. Like, how old is Evetta? Like, she's not super old, right? Like, she looks fairly young.
She's 21, 22.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so Seph's older. Seph's in his like early 30s, and so Seph sees this like young, inventive, sort of like curious person, like very like Evetta. Even now, like Evetta still comes off like very fish out of water, which again, that's something that, which again, like that's something that intrigues Seph because he sort of gets that. But on the other, like on the opposite side of the spectrum of that, Seph is also like much better at adapting to like being around new people and experiencing new things. It's kind of his whole thing, right? So he sees this person who doesn't have that, and he's like, oh, let me go see what's going on over there. And then presumably at some point, Seph just puts two and two together and figures out that Evetta is an artificer. And then being an arcane sort of style of caster, Seph's like, all right, now I definitely like you. I'm taking you under my wing, kid. Which we sort of came to light throughout the course of the next few sessions, where I guess Seph has this sort of like mentorship thing going on. Like Seph enjoys taking people under their wing and being like, all right, let me sort of like show you the ropes. Like,
yeah.
I think in a way, this isn't how I planned out Seph when I was like workshopping them, but I think in a way, Seph's probably started out like, you know, as part of their backstory, very bright-eyed and enamored with like the world and just like magic in general and like the way things worked, and was probably at one point like a very, very hopeful person. And like at some point, Seph realized how the world actually works, and now Seph is completely disillusioned with everything in the whole system. But
that unfortunately comes with age all the time.
but like Seph still wants to nurture that in others. That's Seph's whole thing. Like Seph wants to fix everything so that other people don't end up like Seph, basically.
I can see that. Honestly, I can see that.
So with that in mind, Seph sort of like gravitated naturally towards Evetta. And then over the span of a week sort of opened up to her that Seph is also an arcane caster. Seph sort of...
It really worked out in Evetta's favor because she really didn't have anyone to turn to with her interests.
And like Seph knows that like out in the countryside here that like it wouldn't be like appalling for somebody to be like an arcane caster, and Seph's like a little more flippant than they normally would be about like casting spells. But Seph's whole thing is that their cover story is that they are a traveling priest, to the point that they carry a holy symbol. They primarily try to, in front of other people, cast holy based magic, and it's only when like somebody like Evetta comes along that Seph like tries to like throw out the arcane magic to sort of be like a, hey, we're cool.
Yeah.
But also, if anybody ever questions Seph about the arcane magic, he can just call them out and be like, whoa, what, how do you know that it's arcane? I'm clearly just a priest. My spells are different than yours. What god do you believe in? Don't cheat on my homework. we haven't gotten to that yet, but I definitely have thought of like what happens when somebody calls Seph out on like casting arcane magic, because they guys need to have a plan.
Yeah, and of course Evetta doesn't really have like any way to explain herself if someone catches her casting something. Because like her backup is that she's just an inventor, she's just an engineer, and she likes to work with contraptions and making tools and things for people. But then not really sure how to explain why this one can spew certain arcane stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that point, like, you can just sort of play off the fact that it's like enchantment. And it's not necessarily like, you're not actually tapping into arcane magic yourself. You just have these enchanted items, blah, blah, blah. It's not that big of a deal. That's totally
interesting because I am not able to tell the difference. Being a D&D newbie, I did not realize that enchantments and arcane magic were different somehow. But I didn't realize it was because I think it was the source of the magic that differentiates between all of them? Is that what that is?
Yeah, like enchantments can be like a product of arcane magic, but it's not the same as like walking into a town square and casting Firewall.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah.
Enchantments are definitely like, you could definitely have like somebody, like if somebody's uptight enough, I would imagine that like writer could still have like an NPC call somebody out for using like enchanted items, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's not necessarily like an indicator that you're using like unrestricted, unlicensed like evil magic or something like that.
Oh,
like,
okay, because it's contained to a single object.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, it's like you're just sort of tapping into like one very specific thing. It's not like, yeah, you don't sort of have like unmitigated access to the arcane. You have like one very specific like purpose-made tool, more or less. And you can have, again, you can have enchantments that are holy in nature as well, or you can have enchantments that are like natural in nature. So as long as you play it right, like you're still like mechanically, you're still rolling deception checks out the ass, but
yeah, which
you
Evetta is no good at. So that's going to be pretty scary.
Which is why you're hanging out with Seth. He's going to do all the talking.
Yes. So like, okay, so going back to the descriptions of our characters, let me give a brief description of Zara that Quenie provided me here. So Zara Irving has tawny skin with light hazel eyes. She has short wavy black hair that stops midway to her neck. She's also wearing a black tunic and breeches under her chainmail, and around her neck sits an amulet with the holy symbol of Embis, the old world god of jury under the Judgment Pantheon. She stands at about 5'6" tall and has a longsword sheathed on her left hip and a shield, 5 javelins, and her backpack on her back. She stands with good posture, with her head held up high, lending credence to the sort of aura you would expect from a holy paladin. Evetta is supposed to be, you know, this 21, 22-year-old blonde-haired woman with the blue eyes. Oh my, how original. And of course, the outfit that she wore when life changed, when life changed, made her stand out really badly. Because she has this sort of like, I guess she has this multi-layered sort of outfit to her in a style that I don't think can be seen or I don't think it's seen in the countryside as often at all, especially with how ornate her hat is. I will say her hat is like, it's kind of wide brim-ish with a little feather in some way. What is that called? What kind of hat is that? Like,
it's like a top hat.
Wide brim.
Is it
wide
kind
brim.
of? I mean, well, okay. I guess if you look up Navia from Genshin Impact, that is what I'm imagining. That was the character that I linked in the Discord. And I honestly do not know how or what to call that specific type of hat, because I didn't think it was exactly a top hat. But then again, I'm thinking of the stereotypical top hats. They're like tall, and that's not what I'm going for. But it's musketeer-like, but it's not really musketeer. I don't know what to call it. I feel bad. I should have looked this up. But
Maybe just Googling hat names really quick.
yeah, right? I really should have. But so yeah, I tried to envision her with some Victorian-esque sort of outfit, but rundown. Now it's rundown and much more like less ornate, maybe less layers or something easier to walk around in, so she doesn't stand out as badly.
Is this an outfit that Evetta made for herself? Like, this isn't indicative of like Dason at all, right? Like, this is like, would you say that this is Evetta sort of like trying to own her identity while also not like just immediately broadcasting who she is, but just sort of like trying to be this person that she knows herself to be type thing?
I think it's just, it's a I wasn't sure how spoilery that is, actually. Wait.
Well, I mean, meta-wise, like, Seth won't know this, but if you don't, if you want to, as a player, if you want to keep secrets, that's fine. My hand has more or less been dealt as a player at this point. Like,
yeah, that's fair. That's true. I was going to say it's a product of her upbringing.
Okay. That's interesting. That's actually one of the things that I feel like that's actually like one of the things getting back into like why Seth would have been interested in Evetta specifically as well is Seth being a clockwork soul. He sees you like with these gears and these like mechanical apparatuses and stuff, and like before he knows anything about you, he's like, I like this one. I don't know what's going on over there, but I need to figure it out. Like, I feel like Seth would probably have like with any artificer have like a baseline interest in them because they kind of like represent physically these like concepts that like he sort of tries to evoke magically, right? This idea of like mechanical like cleanness and like perfection. Like Seth is very much like he's about the well-oiled machine. He wants things to work out like well, and like that translates to like, you know, how he views the world and stuff, but he sees like an artificer and he's probably like, ooh.
And I forgot to ask, but I didn't really know whether artificers were well known around the New World.
That's a good question.
Sorry, say that again?
Are artificers actually well known throughout the New World? Or is that more of a job, a profession within a certain area?
Oh man, so.
Or is that too spoiler? Because we are.
It's a little spoiler. It's a little spoiler-ish.
No, that's fair.
But
you get to keep the most secrets.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I will. Should I let you guys know that? Because it's not. Okay, it relates it. Well, okay, if I say that, then it's obvious what the giveaway is.
Oops.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
Part of it is kind of the public's perception of Evetta, knowing that she's an artificer. Is being an artificer something that she should have hid? And if she should have, she did a terrible job because Seth found out already.
I will say that. Oh, sorry.
So I mean, in Dayston, you were working with artificers.
Yes, that's true.
You were working with enchanters. So if the most anti-arcane city even allowed artificers through some very there's some like, you know, legal loopholes and a lot of money under the table, and you'll probably find artificers elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think like to give Evetta like some amount of credit, like Seth only put it together so easily again because like she like he would have like a vested interest in that, being a clockwork soul sorcerer. Like I don't feel like just any Joe Schmo on the street could have looked at you. Like they maybe see like a tinkerer, like you're probably like the village.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
You're probably like the village eccentric who like plays with all these like weird like mechanical machines and stuff like that. But I don't think anybody would like necessarily raise an eyebrow at that. Whereas like Seth, who sort of has an eye for that sort of thing and would be interested in it, and who as like a scholar would be like learned enough to be like, oh hey, I know what you are. He's the meme. I know what you are.
I know what you are.
So they give Evetta some credit.
I feel another thing that probably made her stand out is the fact she had a firearm.
Also,
she's got a little glass hanging out,
Oh yeah.
and it's like, oops, should have hit that. Totally forgot.
Evetta's American.
Yes.
I don't need to hide. I got my rights, brother.
It's like she comes from a place where it's common, so she doesn't even think anything of it until people start pointing out that, what is that weird thing on you? And it's like,
I like that though, because I like that like that speaks to her like naivete as like a character, right? Like Evetta's still very much like figuring the world out. So like she shows up in a town, she comes from a place where this is totally commonplace. She doesn't think too much of it. She's like toned down like her appearance like to a fault, but like, you know, obviously her weapon would be something that's like very important to her for like multiple reasons.
It's her
Yeah.
security
so, like,
blanket.
Yeah, exactly. Like both literally and like metaphorically, it is her security blanket.
I will say, so meta-wise, Evetta was actually planning to go to a specific location, but she didn't know where it was. She went the wrong way.
Oh, would that have
So-
been something that Evetta told Seth? Did Seth know that?
That's not something she would have mentioned at all.
Okay.
She
No,
would
that's
probably
fair.
mention it much later when she's more comfortable. But yeah.
Yeah.
So Seth's description. What
I
does
was gonna
Seth
say, yeah.
actually look like?
So currently, Seth looks like a small old man. But no, the Seth that the party knows and that like all the players are also introduced to. Seth is a human man in his early 30s with sort of like dark olive skin and dark brown hair, sort of like coiffed at around the shoulders. And he carries himself very sort of like I want to say like not quite fully reserved, but very much just sort of like he does his own thing, but he sort of always tries to like show an interest in everything around him. He's very much the type of person that like there's a reason why his best friend in town was like the bar gossip. Seth has this sort of air of like I kind of know a little bit of everything and I kind of know a little bit about everybody and I want to know these people and I want people to sort of perceive me as non-threatening. If I could describe Seth in like one word, it would probably be non-threatening.
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
very
definitely.
much like
I got that impression too.
yeah, he tries to constantly sort of be this like, oh hey, we're just here to talk and chat, and I'm just a friendly face, blah blah blah. And he sort of wears this combination of like scholar robes and like priestly robes. They don't look to be like indicative of any one particular like type of school or anything like that. Like they look very much like something he probably had like specifically made for him. And they sort of evoke like just like somebody who is learned. Like he wants to be perceived as this like knowledgeable, friendly face around town. He carries also around his neck a holy symbol, which is a set of scales, like for weighing things, like the Libra symbol, basically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's his arcane focus that he casts from. Yeah, so he tries very hard to put on this appearance of a very laid back, sort of disarming priestly figure. He usually he carries with him like his pack, and he probably has like a book on him, either for writing in or just something to read like around town. And that's probably like how he found Evetta one day. He was just like walking, like just doing the rounds through Hrodenvar and saw this like fresh face wander in.
Yeah.
from the east, looking completely lost.
Oh, definitely.
Wielding a gun, and Seth's like, I need to protect this one. So I don't know exactly how that first conversation probably would have went. Evetta probably would have been. I mean, you could correct me on this, but I feel like Evetta probably would have been like highly defensive.
Oh yes, yeah.
The second this fucking stranger runs up to her.
And I mean, like,
Especially-
if Seth greeted her the same way that he greeted Zara, yeah, she would be very defensive because it's like, oh god, who are you?
I
What do
feel
you
like-
want?
I feel like that was definitely like Seth playing it up because he had Evetta with him and goofing off.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I feel like upon seeing Evetta and just sort of like the way that Evetta carried herself, he probably would have been a bit more smooth about it. But still, like, if Evetta's coming from this like very like conservative, religious, anti-arcane place, which Seth wouldn't have known at the time, obviously. But if he walks
Yeah.
up to her wearing priest robes and is like, "Hello, child,"
Oh, that would immediately put her on the defense, definitely.
which is
Yeah,
why
because I have
sort
no
of like,
idea if you've actually noticed like the small little reactions that Evetta had around Zara.
yeah, I feel like that's part of the reason why Seth was so keen early on to like demonstrate arcane magic around Evetta, because he would have picked up on like the discomfort, right, and the fact that she was like very much on edge.
Yeah.
And so like within the first like probably couple of hours, oh god,
Sorry, keep going, guys. Sorry, just keep going. This is the perfect music to talk about this.
no, I fully agree. This is Evetta facing the true
The
beast,
cleric
social
beast.
interaction.
The true boss, social anxiety.
I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head now.
Oh,
Cleric
man.
soundtrack, bang.
Yep, yeah.
Oh yes, one of my favorite songs.
But yeah, Seth would have very quickly just been like, "Hey," and then like demonstrated something to sort of like let her know, you know, we're cool. You can sort of like let your guard down, like it's okay, type thing. And at that point, sort of the relationship that Seth and Evetta would have had for the week leading up to where the campaign starts would have been very much sort of like a, hey, while you're in town, you can stay as long as you want. You can crash here, because presumably Evetta didn't have very much like gold on her. And Seth, being a scholar and having arcane books and stuff, would have been like, hey, you can like look through my small personal library and I can also teach you some stuff. Let me sort of like set you on the right path. And like at that point, like I feel like from Seth's point of view, like in his mind, like if plot didn't happen, Seth probably would have just let Evetta like read her fill of books and like figure out whatever she wanted to figure out. And then at some point, whenever she wanted to leave, he would have just been like, all right, see ya. Good to know that there's another person out there that I can sort of trust and rely on, type thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
This is music.
Really got me, yeah.
What's wrong, guys?
I do want to say that I feel like Evetta would actually have some amount of coin on her, because I do still believe that she probably would not have trusted Seth initially.
Yeah.
At least on the first few days or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, that's
so
valid.
at least like she would have probably stayed at whatever tavern or whatever inn or whatever for a bit until the arcane books came out. Then she probably would have stayed there for hours just reading until she like fell asleep at the desk or whatever it
I
is.
say that's probably like where it became a thing, where like she probably just crashed there like second or third night.
Yeah.
And Seth was like, you could just read as often as you want. Like, I don't care. Like, you just sort of chill. Like by day 3, Seth was probably just letting Evetta have like the run of his house during the day while Seth went out to go like walk around town and stuff. He'd just be like, all right, don't burn my house down. Here's all my books. I'll see you later.
That just demonstrates an amount of trust that Seth has.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Seth's whole deal is he wants to get people that... Seth wants to be as trusting as possible to people upon first meeting them. Because Seth's... this is like meta spoilery things, but Seth's whole like game plan is he wants as many people on his side as possible. Because Seth's end game is like the world's broken and we need to fix it. Like this gestures at world is fucked. We need to figure this out, and we need to figure this out because, you know, only so many races like live very long. Like the clock is ticking. People who have a more finite grasp on time and who are like actually pressured by moving forward, like we need to figure this stuff out. So that's why like Seth needs to be as trusting as possible, or at least appear to be. Like, Seph's willing to take that risk, I think. I don't think it's necessarily that Seph is incredibly trustworthy. I think it's that Seph's willing to flip that coin, and he's willing to back up his deeds. He's willing to back up his thoughts with action if the person turns out to be a bad apple.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone ever, we sort of saw it in the last session 6, I think it was, like, when Seph needs to be threatening, he's not afraid to, and he's willing to put his money, he's willing to put his magic where his mouth is, basically. He's confident enough that if anything were to happen between him, like an altercation were to happen between him and somebody else, that he will fight to the death, basically. But he's willing to take that chance on people because he still wants to believe that there's more good than bad out there. Like, that's sort of his whole deal. And so I feel like that first week where Evetta and Seph were getting to know each other, Evetta's sort of like from her perspective, Seph is just very much this I'm a traveling priest, this is what I do, blah blah blah. If there's these magic cops that show up every now and then called the Carmelis, if you see those guys, I'm just a priest, you're just a tinkerer, they don't need to know anything else about that. And then the additional stuff that he would have shared with Evetta is, I'm actually an arcane scholar, I've studied a little bit of magic in addition to holy stuff. Let me sort of teach you what I know. I feel like that's sort of where the characters are when session 1 sort of starts, I guess.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. I believe that.
Yeah. I
wish we had Zara's perspective on this sort of stuff. It's unfortunate.
I'm gonna call her.
Do you want to?
I'll be honest, she's probably sleeping right now.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I would let her sleep. It's fine. She doesn't have to come in and if she doesn't. Okay. Well, I mean, the campaign does involve her as well, and so I'd like to get her side on this whole situation. But
session 1 more or less starts from her perspective, right?
Almost,
yeah. The boat, we ask some preliminary questions to figure out the stuff that we've already kind of outlined, but when the action takes place, it's Zara arriving in town. We get to see her also on the boat at first before any of either of us are introduced.
Basically,
which I found, and I like the way that it started because it sort of sets her up as this adventurer who's entering the world for the first time. Zara being the POV character for the first few interactions of the campaign, I thought was really, really smart, because you're taking a character who themselves is being new to the world and trying to figure everything out, and by making them the POV, you sort of have the mirror for us, the players. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. I totally get that.
So she arrives, and I run at her, yelling and waving and saying hello and being friendly. And sheepishly behind me, we have Evetta.
Yep, exactly. I remember that one of the first things that Zara did was just drop into a defensive stance because she just did not know who you were.
Yep.
She was just what are you doing? What? I'm not here to be mugged.
I feel like in the same way that Evetta was immediately defensive the second Seph showed up.
Yes.
Zara, again,
hand on Glock.
Zara, yeah. Seph approaches the most heavily armed individual he can and just cranks it to 110% so that he can just de-escalate it as soon as possible. You have a gun? I'm gonna walk up to you and say hi. You're wearing full chainmail, a sword, and a shield. I'm just gonna come running at you and wave it. I want to Seph just wants to get over the awkward first introductions as fast as possible because he doesn't care about that. He just wants to meet the person and know who they are. So he's just going to immediately try to disarm them and just be like, hey, I know that you think I'm a weirdo, but we're actually super cool. Let's be chill.
Yeah.
And just sort of going from there.
That was an interesting way to introduce the characters to Zara.
I think that it's sort of like, I don't know, we sort of get a perspective of all three of like the initial party members like really well. Because you have Zara, who's this like stoic, reserved, but not reserved in the same way that Evetta is reserved, right? Like she's not meek. She's very much like, I'm gonna keep to myself, but I'm gonna sort of like, you know, I've got my eye on you type thing. Like, and Zara's very much like, I'm gonna stand here and I have like the physical power to like stand up if I need to.
Yeah.
Whereas Evetta sort of like quietly follows behind Seth, who's this like exuberant force running towards. I'm the unstoppable force moving towards the immovable object, and Evetta's just trailing behind me.
She's just a speck of dust behind.
But no, I like that as like the first interaction for those three characters, because you kind of get a feel for all three of them instantly.
Yeah.
I think the next thing that happened is we see some rude asshole get off of the boat and be a jerk.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he like shoved past Zara for a second. I think he was wearing a cloak or something like that. I couldn't remember what he was wearing. Something that hid his identity in some way. And I believe, I don't know if anyone saw it either, but Evetta was the only one that spotted weapons hidden underneath his cloak. So immediately, the seeds have been sown. There we go. Something is about to happen. We should probably follow this guy.
Yeah. I definitely, like, meta-wise, thought that this dude was, like, the nugget that we were supposed to, like, grab onto. Like, that we were supposed to follow this first, and then we ended up going.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I did that as a sign to say, "Hey, Zara needs to move out of the walkway."
Oh, did you?
that was why I did that.
That's really funny.
and then you guys started following him, and I was like, "All right, well, he's important now."
That's awesome.
Oh man, yeah, that was great.
No, that was perfect. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought he was
We
already
basically followed him to the tavern too.
Yeah,
like,
sort of
we basically invited Zara to lunch, just like, hey, you know, let's go to the tavern where that guy was.
Yeah, I forget exactly how like our conversation went, but I think more or less Seth was just like, hey, you like, let me help you around in town. Like, you're an object of curiosity. Also, you're probably going to need some help around. I can do that. Gestures towards Evetta. Let's go take you to lunch and we can sort of get you situated type thing. And then, yeah, we follow this jerk to a tavern. And then we see the biggest jerk.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. But that we will not talk about that until later.
I was going to say, Ryder, explain this jerk. This jerk that we see. Who do we see in the tavern?
All right, yeah. So, Voltus Sphafera, a red tiefling with sort of, I was always envisioning that his horns were kind of curled and then went to like the back. So imagine that as well. Mm-hmm. He's very Scotty.
Groomed. No.
Oh
my gosh.
He has a very comfortable face.
Yeah, no, he likes to wear like flashy bling, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Very gaudy.
Very
ostentatious.
Flamboyant, I think, was the way that you described it.
Flamboyant, I think, yeah. He had all jewelry just everywhere on his body. He had piercings, he had rings, he had bracelets, he had baubles and ornaments hanging from his horns, earrings, whatever. He had everything. Necklaces, he had everything. And he was wearing some robes. What? He was wearing a robe that had a very like ornate pattern. And again, very looks like to be like, an expensive trim, all that jazz. But the most important thing about him, however, is he was wearing arcane necklaces. At least in the context of the New World, that essentially meant he was a graduated student of the academy in Carmeli. and even more specifically, he had at least like a again
master.
Yeah, he was a I haven't fleshed it out yet, but he basically had like a master's degree, and whatever the equivalent, still coming up with, whatever the equivalent of that is, he basically had that, which of course caught Steph's eye, and so.
Yeah.
We basically arrive in the tavern on the heels of this human guy, and we see him sit down next to this tiefling man. And I don't know if words were exchanged or if Seth just found the perfect table to like watch these two basically, because like they were seated up at the bar, and I like to imagine like as the scene played out, like Seth just sort of like wordlessly brings Evetta and Zara to a table that has like the right view, and then just like stands there, has them sit down first so that Seth can sit on the outside edge facing the bar in a booth, so that he can just watch them like a hawk. And I think at that point, I feel like at that point there's probably like very like awkward small talk between Evetta and Zara, because like Seth was sort of like the social grease that brought these two together, and then Seth sees this guy wearing arcane necklaces, and just immediately the world around him disappears, and he's like, okay, you two are gonna have to carry on conversation now because I need to find out what the hell's going on over here. but without saying any of that.
Yeah, none of that was ever discussed.
Yeah, Seth just sort of sits down, and at that point, like any conversation between the three of them is probably like you two awkwardly making talk, and Seth just being like, I think actually you had me roll like a base like persuasion or something, so that like Seth still kept up conversation like with the group, but like was very much like not, that wasn't his focus, and I think it just sort of spoke to his like being charismatic, that he was able to carry on a conversation while not actually like he probably had like a very like involved like like a nice discussion, and like had all the niceties and like explained the town, but from Sev's perspective he probably retained none of it. Like he probably doesn't actually remember like what he said to Zara. He just knows that he like had a nice talk, and he's like, I don't know exactly what I said, but I know that I was good at it. Because the thing that I care about is watching this tiefling dude. And so I think like an hour or so passes, and I'm just sort of what the heck?
Sorry, keep going.
like an hour or so passes. We get our meals, and then these guys leave. And I just sort of like walk up to the bar, and I essentially try to bribe the bartender to give me information. And it's not my friend Nami, it's some jerk.
It's not, it's somebody else.
Some evening or night shift worker.
Some clown. And
a useless goose, you would say.
Yeah, some useless goose. And so I have to if it was Nami, if my girl Nami was there, we would have been good to go. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Now remind me, did Seth actually recognize which school of magic that the tiefling had?
Oh yes, it was. He recognized that it was School of Conjuration, and he also further recognized that one of the other talismans he had, I'm trying to find it, was a pendant for Rosmus, the god of conjuration, basically.
Oh, okay.
I feel like Ryder can like correct me on this, but at least from like the sort of understanding that I have loosely of the way the academies work is like you probably take all of the courses, like you probably take like all of the arcane classes, and then you just sort of like specialize into the ones that you want. But you probably have like a baseline understanding of all of them before you like decide like this is gonna be my like my actual focus.
Yeah, since Carmelia has such a strict, you would know this, Seth, they had a very kind of traumatic event called the 1000 Nights of Death. And it was only so effective because there was no control, no regulation of magic on the streets, right? There was control about what you could or could cast for like services and for shops. They would not allow you to just create like potions of poison unless it was for very specific things. whether for like antidote research or the euthanization of like certain like animals or creatures. But other than that, you could almost just kind of get away with anything like on the streets.
Yeah.
So most of the restrictions that Carmeli has now is from Carme, the family.
Yeah.
That the previous kingdom. So that's why. Why this is important is because once you apply to the academy and they do accept you, you basically take like a pre-freshman year, like before you're like like a freshman or like a student. You basically do like this year of kind of what you described. It's sort of like kind of like you take like all the classes of 101 of each class. I guess in this case it'd be like 001 or whatever. But yeah, a very basic preliminary course of each school of magic until you figure out which college or which school you want to. Again, I'm using like modern university college terms because I haven't fleshed this out, but like you figure out which school you want to major in basically. Mm-hmm. Then of course you can double major, you can major in minor, things like that, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And so Seth recognizes these conjuration symbols, and this is because like at this point the party isn't aware that Seth is from Carmeli. Seth was a student of the academies. Seth is also a master, and also I think we decided that Seth also had like a minor. Like Seth is a master in transmutation. No idea why that particular school. And also, I believe a minor in it was either enchantment or abjuration. It's the
I think you said abjuration.
Abjuration came to mind.
Yeah, it's because the two schools represent like the clockwork disciplines. Like when Seth can like learn magic outside of the sorcerer class, the spells that he has access to are those two. And then transmutation obviously also has other connotations for Seth as well. Mm-hmm. And so Seth, being a student of the academies but sort of trying to like is actively on the run, sees this person show up and knows instantly that they're also on the run, but they're being an idiot.
and we very
sort of like,
flamboyant.
Yeah, and Seth gets into this in character with this person, just to sort of like I guess flesh out for like season one episode one why this caught Seth's attention is like in Seth's mind, people that act like this sort of threaten other people who have like escaped from the academies. And Seth's not exactly like the most down low, but Seth like doesn't necessarily care for himself to like fully be hidden because Seth's very good at hiding. And Seth's whole thing is like if you show up and if you bring Carmeli Knights to a place, they're going to be looking for people who've run away and fled the academies. And they might not find you, but they might find other people, regardless of where you are. And because Seth's whole like issue with Carmeli and with the system in general is that like he doesn't like the way that like it imposes these rules on people. Like Basin has its own issues and Carmeli has its own issues. And from Seth's point of view, he's kind of in the middle and he's like, both systems suck. Like both ends are awful, and we need to find a way to destroy both halves of this. But Carmeli's the one that I know, so I'm gonna sort of work there. And if we have people like Voltus running around bringing attention to the Carmeli, bringing attention to like people who fled Carmeli, it's just gonna cause issue for people who just want to like live normal lives. Like Seth's not one of those people. Seth's not just gonna like retire quietly in the countryside and sort of like live out his life. Seth wants to like break everything, but Seth knows that not everybody is like that, and he's willing to let the people who just want to be normal and live normal lives away from the academies be like that. But Voltus sort of like Voltus threatens that for those people, and Seth doesn't like at this point Seth doesn't want to like like attack him or anything, but basically it's like Voltus to Seth is like a child. Like,
Yeah.
Seth just wants to walk up to him and be like, "The fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like Voltus is just acting out and being like oblivious to like sort of what his presence sort of like represents, at least in Seth's eyes. Obviously, like we learned that Voltus is like very much aware of what Voltus is doing, and Voltus doesn't care.
Yeah.
But at this time, from Seth's perspective, he sees this person sort of threatening like the people, like the types of people that Seth wants to protect, like the people that he's ultimately like he wants to fight for. He just sort of sees the antithesis of that in Voltus, and he just wants to like, I need to talk, I need to set you right, young man. And so so Seth sort of like watches their conversation for a little bit, goes up to the bartender, and what Seth learns is that not where they're going or anything specifically, but that they have like Lavellin Manor sort of came up like a handful of times. And Seth knows that this is a sort of like very rich like noble family that owns a vineyard with a kind of like questionable past, and that they're outside of town. And so Seth's like, huh, that's interesting. And so the rest of the party, Evetta and Zara, like, your only real investment in this is that like this guy was kind of rude.
Yeah, that was
Zara.
it. Now, okay, what's interesting is that I don't remember the night shift bartender actually mentioning anything about where the tiefling was going, period. It was the morning after when Seth was talking with Nami.
Oh, was it Nami? Okay, maybe
I think it was Nami that actually revealed more about the Lavellin Manor.
Okay, my bad.
Nami was one who told Seth that.
It's my girl.
Oh, poor Nami. Oh, I am
Nami's
sad
okay.
we didn't get to, I mean, anyway, right. So, moving on. Yeah, night rolls around. Tiefling's gone, whatever it is. Zara doesn't have any money on her.
Yes. Well, Zara has some money, but we discover that like the inn is like incredibly expensive.
Oh, that's
which, like,
yeah.
It makes sense, right? Because like we sort of set the scene that like Hrodenfar is like more or less this like big, like not bustling, but sort of like, you know, the entrance to the new world for a lot of people.
Yeah. So I'm sure they see a lot of new people, newcomers coming in and out all the time.
Also, like, we know, and it's sort of been hinted at, that Zara is a noble. So Zara, like, probably looks like somebody who can pay, right? So,
but
like,
she doesn't.
I get...
which is interesting.
It's because she's level 1. It's fine. But, like, it makes sense that like you'd see somebody like Zara walk up to like an inn and be like, oh, how much does a room cost? And you could just see like the dollar signs above like the innkeep's head as he's like, how much gold can I reasonably charge you before you tell me to go to hell?
It was so funny because it was 2 gold, and she was like, oh, that's cheap.
Which I think that sort of speaks. Obviously, that was probably like a meta thing, but I think that sort of speaks. But I think like it worked in character, right? Like it sort of speaks to like the noble background. Where it's like, oh, 2 gold for a night stay. Meanwhile, like any other villager would be like, what?
That's so overpriced.
Like, that's like 2 weeks' pay for farming radishes. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Evetta would not know this at all. Like, she obviously would not know how well the economy actually holds up outside of where she came from.
I'll be completely honest. I will. I mean, that was set up that way, and now that kind of makes sense. That was a complete miscalculation by me. Nothing. It should have been like a silver, probably.
I was gonna say inns usually run between like 1 to 5 silver, depending on how nice it is. And then if it's super fancy, you're talking like a gold 2.
Yeah, just the and that's normally just per night, right? And so if you rent like a week, then the price might be a bit more.
Yeah.
But
especially out in like the countryside like this, it would be
complete complete miscalculation.
not to call you out, but I had a suspicion that was the case. But I just sort of like in the session, I just sort of like let us all roll with it,
Yeah.
and I think it worked out because like it's sort of like it played into Zara's character, and like it was fun. Like I think it ended up like working out. So
Unintentionally
Yeah,
too.
I think
I
I
think
would
that was the best
totally-
part.
That's why I didn't say anything
totally-
because I was super chill with it. It's like that's
I
great.
would totally go with that. What had happened was that bartender was totally like ripping her off and just wanting more money.
Yeah.
Um.
That was pretty
so-
funny though.
And so once again, Seth invites some random stray.
I
think we worked out
the
that-
floor is available.
Yeah, I think we worked out that Seth, being a gentleman, would have like given the bed to Evetta and was just sleeping on like his bedroll, presumably like on the ground.
Mhm, yeah.
And so he's just like, well, there's a spot of the ground on that side of the house you can borrow. I guess you can go sleep there.
That was
like-
great.
Obviously, like Ryder and I never talked about this, but I like to imagine that like Seth had to have stolen money when he left the academy. Is because like there'd be like no other way for him to like survive out here, basically. So like I don't know where he got it from, but like presumably at some point, in order to be able to afford a house, like 'cause Seth doesn't have any like. Seth's only applicable skills are being charming and knowing magic. Those are the only two things that, like, those are Seth's only real skills. He's a smooth talker, he looks good, and he can cast spells.
Yeah.
So, like, presumably in order to actually, like, sustain a home, he would have, like, probably done, like, priest stuff like while traveling, but in order to like purchase the home, I have to imagine that when Seth fled the academies, he grabbed like an amount of money from somewhere, or like maybe he stole like an amount of like mundane like magical trinkets, nothing as powerful as whatever the hell Voltas had going on, but just like something to sell somewhere so that he could afford to live. Basically.
Yeah.
And it was enough to get you a home.
probably, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, this isn't anything that I had planned, because when Ryder was like, yeah, you know what? You've got a house in Rodenfar. I was like, how the fuck? Seth own a home.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. And so, like, to sort of backfill in why that happened, like, yeah, I have to imagine that Seth took something of value at some point.
Yeah.
Like, Seth's not like a thief, but like Seth left at like that was something they probably planned for like a year at that point. Like, it was probably this like growing resentment that sort of bubbled up over time that led to like this big plan to finally leave. So there's probably like an accumulation of wealth to be able to afford this house that all of his friends can sleep on the floor of.
Did not foresee the amount of strays that you would have to take in.
Yeah, but again, I like the completely unintentional like character thing. That's just who Seth
Yeah.
is.
This
Yeah.
is great.
Which
So,
I
yeah.
think probably just sort of comes out naturally in the fact that I, like, being the one who's played D&D longer, like, sort of adopt that role, like, in like the player dynamic, I
Oh,
guess.
yeah.
So
It kind of
like,
does work out that way.
It
I mean,
really does.
yeah, it probably manifested itself in the game as a result of how like I was like as like a player to the other player.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we
Yeah,
crash the night.
everyone go to sleep at night. Well, actually, okay, so I will mention a couple of things.
Yeah.
I did notice, well, okay, as soon as we got to Seth's house, Seth immediately casted light to brighten up his home, which is something that Zara was appalled by. Okay. Seth also
Sorry.
achieved victory in deceiving Zara? No, I'm kidding. I do remember Zara saying something or making a comment about it, but I don't remember if anyone mentioned anything about it either.
No, Zara's sort of like we sort of discussed this out of character, and I definitely like Seth has noticed it, but Seth hasn't said anything of where like Zara will not necessarily recoil when like arcane magic happens, but definitely like gives it like bombastic side eye, like whenever like arcane stuff happens, and Seph's sort of more used to like how Evetta is like around the arcane magic, like, you know, it's sort of like it has the opposite effect, right, where it sort of like puts you at ease, whereas like with Zara it makes her like a little bit uncomfortable. And so I feel like Seph would probably dial it back like a little bit. And because Seph would know that, right? Like being from the old world, Zara being from the old world, that is, Seph would sort of realize that like she's probably not going to be like as familiar or comfortable around arcane, but it's sort of like it's hit or miss, right? Like it could kind of go either way depending on like what region of the old world she's from. So Seph's still like trying to gauge that and figure that out, right? Like sort of like where she stands on it. She hasn't turned Seph into the wizard cops yet, so he thinks that she's, you know, okay enough.
Yeah. And of course, Evetta doesn't actually know of, I don't think she knows of Zara's position on the arcane either.
I don't think so, no.
It's really more just sort of like if you've noticed how she's reacted to it, which I don't know if Evetta
because I know out of character, I noticed it, but I don't think Evetta did. So yeah. Okay. Another thing I will say is that I don't know if I made it clear, but before everyone just went to sleep or whatever it is, Zara actually went outside to pray, or she told everyone that she was going to go pray outside or whatever it is. Yeah. And Evetta actually kind of winced at that gesture involuntarily. At the pray. Yeah, she not massively recoiled either, but like I didn't know if I made it clear that she was like, oh, you know, and like backed away a bit.
Yeah. I think it's actually interesting because it's like we sort of like with the three characters that we have so far, like you can sort of see like the full like spectrum of like the arcane to holy magic, and like you've got Evetta on the one end who is like a big fan of arcane magic, but comes from this like holy magic background, and you sort of have this like negative relationship with holy magic and an affinity for arcane magic. And then on the other end, you've got Zara, who also comes from like a holy magic background, but as a paladin is like very much like invested in it. And like, you know, we've seen her praying at this point, and she in episode 2 we'll sort of see where she's like very much like in tune with like the spirituality of like the holy magic. Yeah. And then in the middle, you've got Seth,
right in the middle,
which is perfect, which is like how I built him, and I'm so glad that it worked out this way. You've got Seph, who is sort of like the intersection of arcane magic and holy magic, and like Evetta's never seen Seph pray, but like Seph will say like prayers like whenever people are like suffering or something like that. Seph doesn't follow a god. He doesn't have anything like as specific as like a deity that he follows, but so like he sees both sides of the argument basically. And I really like that we have all three like variations of like where people can sort of like fall on like the arcane versus holy scale. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I honestly really like how this whole dynamic worked out in the end.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of have Dag.
You've got sweet Dag.
Yeah.
Just kind of orbiting around.
So we haven't had a chance to really explore it yet. I've sort of like hinted at it, like in like little like minor dialogue. We haven't really had a chance where we've had like enough downtime for like Dag and Seph to like really talk. But the second Dag started growing a tail, Seph was like, yes, my man. I can do that too. Like, obviously, Seph would recognize that Dag isn't exactly what Seph is, but there's like an unspoken camaraderie, at least in Seph's heart, where he's like, my boy. And we haven't had a chance to explore that yet, but I've definitely like in the last couple of episodes where sessions, I don't know, where where Dag's grown the tail. Where Dag's grown the tail in combat. Like Seph is very much sort of like, we need to talk about this.
Yeah. Evetta noticed it too, but I haven't really had a chance to talk about it at all.
Yeah, we've been sort of like, we've been on a pretty tight itinerary since session 3.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway.
Which is fine, right. Anyway. Moving on. Yep.
Sorry, our game is really cool and I like gushing about our characters.
It's fantastic.
Turns out I'm a big fucking nerd and I like talking about how cool everyone's characters are.
It works out. This is great. But
So yeah.
another thing that I should add is that there were Carmelian Knights. Zara did actually notice Carmelian Knights. Well, I don't know if she knew who they were. She just saw knights who were wearing blue colors.
Context.
Yeah, she just saw them out there wandering around.
Yeah.
And she apparently brought it up. I wasn't sure if that was like she brought it up just because it was just an offhanded comment, or if she was worried, because I don't remember that part.
I think it was just sort of like, oh, hey, there's these knights wearing these colors thing. And that's when, like, Seth and Evetta probably, like, immediately exchanged glances.
Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely was also from, she was also just new in town in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably could have been from the perspective of, like, is this normal?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, yeah, I think at that point, we, like, the rest of us hadn't interacted with them at all. That came up later. But I think at this point, Seth at least was sort of like, all right, they're looking for Voltus, that fucking idiot. Like, at this point,
Evetta's fascinated. I was like, where are they going?
Yeah. At this point, as a character and a player, in my mind, the main story thread is the tiefling. Like, this is where we're going. We need to go to Lavellan Manor. We need to figure this out. Like, what is happening with this guy? And then it ended up being like that's not the case. So like the next morning, we wake. I think Seth wakes up the first, or it's like Seth wakes up first. Evetta had stayed up late, like tinkering, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so she slept in.
Yeah, you're still asleep. And then I think Zara's just sort of like hanging out, like doing like a morning prayer. So Seth sort of leaves on his own to go into town, goes back to the inn, meets up with Nami. This is where I learn about Lavellan Manor being sort of what the tiefling and the human, who we later learned to be Marcus, were discussing. And either on the way out or on the way into the tavern, I'm stopped by an old halfling man who sort of like super disheveled, old, falling apart. Like he's like in his like 70s or 80s, right? Like he's old even for a halfling.
Yeah, he's old. Yeah, he's old.
Yeah, he's just out there begging for help.
Yeah, he has like a really poorly written missive about his missing daughter, and he goes into detail about how she's missing or how she hasn't contacted him in like 2 weeks or something like that, and how they've been writing back and forth for like a while, and then all of a sudden she just sort of stopped talking to him. And she lives over in Durstwood, which is like the town that's like a couple hours away.
Flowers.
Yes.
One of the last things that she wrote to him was something about how she like met a friend or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
She basically like gained some romantic interest, basically.
Oh yeah.
And so Seth being Seth was just sort of like, I'll help you out. I see no real reason not to. Also learns about Lavellan Manor and sort of like triangulates like, okay, we'll pop into Durstwood really quick, go see what's happening there, find out like where this guy's daughter is, and then swing by Lavellan Manor. And so with that in mind, he heads back, relays all of this information to Zara and Evetta. And then I think we head to Durstwood. What else did we do that day before we left?
Yeah, that was it. You, on your way to the
I think that was
Rosenbach's finest. You, encountered the disheveled halfling man, talked to Nami, went back, and I don't think anyone really had anything else to do. So then,
one small detail I'll mention is that
excuse me.
Hey.
Sorry, I was.
Please stop that right now.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh gosh, what was I gonna say? God damn. I did like how Zara immediately wanted to help the old man.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. That was really good for the roleplay. Evetta, on the other hand, was the one who was hesitant because she wasn't sure if it was a trap.
Yeah.
Ah.
Evetta hesitated. She wasn't sure if it was a trap. She didn't voice it though. She was actually more curious about why the Carmelian Knights were going in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
But she decided to just suppress her interests and just follow the rest of the team.
I do think we did have sort of like a discussion between the three of us, like what do we want to do? Because I think at this point, Zara had definitely mentioned the Carmeli Knights. I think Seth had, I can't remember if I said anything, but I think at this point, like we'd fully put together, like, okay, they're on the hunt for this guy. They must also be going towards Lavellan Manor. So that's like the one path we can take. Or we can go and follow up with this like request from Grant. And yeah, I do like you said, that Zara was very much like, we need to go help this person. And I think as far as like sort of like that's where Seth ended up leaning as well. And I think for him, it was really more of like, at the time, it's like, well, this is like the easiest thing to go do. Like, we just got to go find some random chick, go walk into a flower shop, ask her boss where she is. Like, that'll take like an afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I want to go, whereas like, I want to go follow up this tiefling guy. Like, that's probably going to be like a whole thing. We'll sort of do that. Like, we'll put that on the back burner. And then also there's sort of like the idea that like, it is sort of like more time sensitive to like go and find this guy's daughter. Because like who knows what happened to her at this point type thing. Like, it's been 2 weeks. She could be dead, like as far as we know. But like, you know, maybe there's a chance that like we could save her. And if we go and do this other thing that's sort of like more interesting, but less pressing, I think. And I don't know. I think if Evetta had said something, you probably could have convinced Seth to go after the tiefling. Like, if you like if she had been, I guess, like a little more not like authoritative, just sort of like a little bit more like outspoken about like, well, what if the knights get to this guy first? Like, I think if you had said something like along that lines, like I think Seth would have flipped like in an instant. Like, if you had mentioned to him like the prospect that like the Carmeli Knights, like, what if they get him to talk? What if they like, because like obviously nobody knows who Seth is, like Voltus or the Carmeli Knights, like they have zero idea, but just the prospect that they get their hands on somebody, like Voltus is an idiot and deserves to like be taught a lesson, but even this jackass doesn't deserve like whatever the Carmelis are going to do to him if they get their hands on him type thing. And I think if Evetta had said something like, who knows if the Carmelis get there first, I think Seth would have immediately flipped and been like, no, we need to go do that now.
Yeah. Which, well, she did not.
No, I find that I like from a meta perspective, like I enjoy forks in the road like that in TTRPGs, because there's an alternate timeline out there.
Yeah,
where,
like what if she actually did say something?
Yeah, where we completely change, like maybe not the entire course of the campaign, but like all the events unfold in a completely different order, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not in Durstwood. We don't know who Liliana is. We don't know, like, we don't see the Mountain Raiders. Like, we don't get any of that until after we go to Lavellan Manor. Like, that's a different game at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So like I find those pivot moments like that like really interesting. On the same coin, not to get too lost in the sauce, in the last session where it's like, do we continue going towards where the boats are, like in the ridge, or do we turn back and tell them? Like, if we go out, like, the campaign might end if we go to the ridge, right? Like, we could just die. Like, if we go there and we don't find a way to get out of whatever combat we get into, like, we TPK and, like, we need to, like, roll new characters.
Yeah, that would be very unfortunate. Oh.
Yeah, but like I love moments like that, and I think this one here to me was like the first like pivotal, like we as a party need to make a decision on like where we go. And so yeah, we make our way to Durstwood, where we finally, I think at this point it's like 2.5, 3 hours into the first session, and we meet our boy.
Yes, finally. Yeah, he's just like, he's severely injured, arrows all over and pelted down.
Homie is
like,
fucked up.
Yeah, he's just leaning up against a tree, just like dying.
And Evetta and Zara immediately use half of their healing resources before we get into a first combat.
Yeah.
And we're immediately on the back foot for every combat we enter going into Durstwood, which I think informs a lot of the way that we played in the second session.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can tell, like, going into episode 2, which is mostly just all combat, the way that we play that versus how we play the combat in session 3, completely different.
Yeah.
Like, session 2's combat is like, we're very conservative, we're very stealthy, we try really hard to not like overextend ourselves. Like, I don't use my last spell slot until we're fleeing Durstwood. Like,
yeah.
Like, I am holding on to that bad boy for my dear life. Whereas the second we're in the sewers in session 3, we're just like, we're full tilt. Like, we're running through there and we're just going. And I'm just winging guiding bolts at people at that point. But yeah, so we get Dag, and Dag's dying, and Zara and Evetta do a heal. It's the first time we see Evetta do her do some magic. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, this was like one of the first times where she actually openly casted something.
Yeah.
I really like, I think the one thing that I really enjoy about Artificers is that, like, you get to have a lot more fun with describing, like, how you cast your spells and stuff. Like, you're not, like, specifically just casting Cure Wounds. You have these, like, magical bandages that you've prepared that you, like, channel the spell. Like, that shit's great because it's just, like, an extra, like, avenue for you as a player to, like, describe the way with which your character, like, interacts with their magic specifically. And I think that's rad.
Yeah.
Same here, yeah.
How confused I was at first when I needed to describe how my magic worked, because as an artificer, I just knew that I tinkered with stuff. That's it. So it actually wasn't until Ryder helped me in describing how, I think you were the one, were you the one who helped describe what Cure Wounds looked like?
Kind of. I think I described basically like a sort of like, no, what did I describe? Actually, I don't remember.
Yeah, I cannot remember when it happened, but
I
Ryder
can't remember
helped
what
me.
Subscribed.
Yeah, like indirectly helped me subscribe. What? Describe how Evetta's Cure Wounds actually worked, and it was fantastic. I stuck with it ever since because it matches up with how artificers are.
Well, I also like, I think it's like Cure Wounds is honestly like brilliant choice for Evetta specifically as an artificer too, because like you come from Dason, you come from the Holy City. It absolutely makes sense that Cure Wounds is one of the spells that you'd have. Like that to me, to sort of go back to what Ryder said like a while ago about like Dason being this town that has artificers through like some loophole, like they're allowed, like their enchantments and their magic like sort of sticks around, and like the sort of like the holy people that sort of control Dason have like allowed this to exist. Like Cure Wounds being the first spell that you cast as an artificer from Dason, like that's brilliant because you're like that's but like for real, because like you're showing like this is like a real application of like where that would come up in Dason, right? Like of course artificers from a holy, like that's probably like that's their bread and butter, right? Like like that is probably like day one of artificer school. We're going to teach you how to like cure wounds, because this is going to be the thing that you do for the rest of your life as an artificer in Dason. You're going to make these bandages and we're going to ship them off to the priests.
Basically.
Which like, I love that. Like, and at the time, obviously I didn't have the context for like what that represented. I just thought, oh, that's cool that she knows cure wounds. That's kind of a fun one for an artificer to have. And then learning that Evetta's from Dason like 2 sessions later and sort of putting together like all of that together, I was like, that's actually really fucking cool.
Yeah, which was entirely unintentional. again.
There's a lot of like
Completely
there's a lot of
unintentional.
like there's a lot of like unintentional but very serendipitous things that happen, I think, with the party where it's like, oh, this just sort of like works out and is actually like really flavorful and fun.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy.
Also, hello, Dag. We are here describing or recapping what had happened in the first few sessions of our D&D campaign, because I realized I did not record any of the first ones. So, yeah, we're currently talking about episode 1, and we're starting on episode 2. We found Dag, healed him up. Dag, when he wakes up, the first thing he thought was that we were enemies. We were probably trying to rob him of whatever he had.
I mean,
and stuff. So
yeah.
that was great. That was a great reaction.
And, Dag, if you would like to describe your character, because I don't think we described him.
That's
Well,
true.
I did a
Go ahead.
very
Describe your
basic
character.
description. I give you like 1 minute.
Oh, Jesus.
1 minute. Go. No.
So dang,
Yes, dang,
Great
he got.
yeah, so he's got hair, arms.
Oh,
He's
wow,
a
really?
guy,
Limbs.
limbs, yes, limbs. He can speak, that's very awesome. So I'll let you know. I already put it somewhere. I had it like a description of him at least.
You can't just make up a description right now?
Okay, let's see. Dag. He's a guy with black hair. He's got like wood.
What race is he?
He's a dwarf.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dwarven
He's
dwarf.
He's a dwarven dwarf who is 4'8", and
4'8". So
Yeah,
greedy.
What do you mean so greedy? You're great on this. What are you talking about? Let's see. At the time of this, he was very bloodied up. He had like a backpack full of his necessities, like survival stuff. As he had to flee that one place that had burned. Durstwood, yeah. I don't remember the name, but it got burned. Let's see. He had a great axe somewhere in there, and
It's just somewhere.
yeah, it's just somewhere.
And several arrows inside of him.
Exactly, several arrows too. Yes.
Oh
He
my
was just
God.
very cautious at the time.
And I loved how I don't know if Evetta knew this beforehand, but it's fascinating to Evetta how Seth just knows so many languages.
Oh yeah, I guess this is the first time where you saw, Seth speak something that wasn't just common. Because I think that's how I tried to like de-escalate the situation, which ended up like moderately, like not backfiring, but like definitely like I just confusing Dag, where like Dag pops up and Seth's initial reaction is like, all right, let's try to calm him down. I'm gonna speak to him in Dwarven. Seth, being a scholar, has just like a bunch of languages in his back pocket, which are mostly useless. But I was like, all right, cool, let's use one here. And then I like, what was Dag's reaction to like hearing Dwarven spoken to him? Because like meta-wise, I think like Ryder mentioned that like you hadn't really heard anybody talk to you in Dwarven in like forever.
Yeah, because if from my backstory, like, what would you say how long it had been since I had been in Durstwood?
Hi guys.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
We are joined by Quenie, who plays as Zara.
Alright, we can just run the session now. Let's go.
All right. I'll end this recording.
I
Restart
don't
the
have my
recording.
dice. I actually left the dice in the car.
Oh no! Looks like we got a break in the new dice.
Okay, so I will say, just for the sake of simplicity, you were probably in Durstwood for roughly 2 months. Now, here's the thing. Me and Amy were just discussing this earlier. The New World uses a different calendar system. Each year is about half of what it is for us in real life. So in New World, each month is 40 days, and there are only 4 months. And they basically correspond to each season. So 2 months would have been about 100. So 2 months would be 4 months in our time. That's how long you were in Durswood before you basically woke up to the town being attacked and raided. And I think we discussed what Dag was doing in Durswood, right? He was basically
like a blacksmith assistant, right?
A blacksmith apprentice, or assistant. David, we should probably flesh out how exactly your character got from his past to how he got to Durswood. Like, we know what he did in the past, and we know he was in Durswood, but we haven't fleshed out like in between that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We should probably do that at some point. It's still mysterious. I think it's kind of a running thing at this point that no one really knows what Dag's backstory is.
Basically, yeah. I'm just like waiting for some mysterious person to come up and be like, "Hey, Dag, I remember you." You know, that kind of
I
thing.
don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think that's gonna happen. This is my backstory.
Yeah, I'm just like waiting for that sort of stuff to start happening. When then we can finally start making the connections for Dag's backstory.
I think Redder will be able to implement it pretty easily.
I think well, hold on, mister. I think you need to.
What?
I think you're probably going to need to be the. I don't want to force you to open up to your backstory, right? That's gonna be something that your character wants to do. I mean, if narrative-wise it makes sense, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm not gonna be like, hey, there's this guy in Dayston who's like, hey, Dag, I'm your brother. Ask the next hour.
Oh, your God. So yeah, for some context, Queenie, we are actually providing a recap on the first 3 sessions that we had because I didn't record them. So I was wanting to provide some, a bit of recap for any listeners who probably would want to know what had happened before I started recording our sessions and such. So yeah, we brought up a couple things about Zara in episode 1 that we felt was actually fantastic in terms of roleplay for the character. Namely, one of them being the fact that when you asked the bartender how much it was to stay the night, and he told you 2 gold, your first response was that, oh, that's cheap. And what was funny is that none of us made the connection that your character gave slight hints of being a noble. So that actually kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Wait, Zara's a noble?
Oh my God.
Oh no, Dag.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just sort of the idea, obviously, at the time, it was probably, a meta, player discrepancy, but just the idea that, in character, it totally works for Zara to be like, oh, 2 gold? Yeah, that's, pocket change, right?
Yeah.
Whereas,
when in reality, inns like that are supposed to be, a silver.
Yeah.
So-
He's charging you, 20 times the average amount.
Basically. He basically, yeah.
But Zara wouldn't blink at that. That's nothing to her probably back home. That's super.
I
was super cool.
that, but you know what? Yeah, that was my plan.
I think I think the tagline for the campaign should be, I didn't plan that, but that works.
Yes.
Basically,
Yeah.
But it's kind of the through line for everything. The characters, the plot, the interactions. I hadn't planned that, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the other thing we pointed out that we really liked was when Evetta, Zara, and Seth all met each other for the first time, we got an immediate understanding of all 3 characters' personalities basically instantly, where Seth starts very exuberantly and outgoingly running towards and flagging Zara down, waving and saying hello. Zara immediately breaks into a defensive stance to be what the heck is happening? And then you've got shy, quiet Evetta sort of trailing behind Seth at a much slower pace.
Yeah.
Within 15 seconds of the characters sort of being introduced to one another, you get an idea of who everybody is. And I like that Zara immediately was sort of what the heck is happening? Who are these people? Which also kind of plays into later on when we discussed Zara seeing all the arcane magic. Zara's still figuring these people out and this place out. Zara's still very much fish out of water. in a
Yeah.
different but similar way to Evetta.
Basically, yeah. And at this point in time, Evetta does not really she wouldn't know what Zara's stance is on arcane stuff. I don't know if it was ever discussed. I don't remember hearing about that being discussed in the later sessions. So
I think like we talked about it briefly when Zara first walked into Seth's house and he like used magic to light everything up. And she kind of just said that it was not usual for her, but she didn't like, she wasn't against it.
oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it
I
was.
think-
That's what I remembered.
Zara and Seth kind of have like this thing in common where it's like they'll hint a lot at like where they sort of stand on things and like some like backstory stuff. Like Zara hasn't actually come out and said, "Hey, I'm a noble," but we've seen from like the way that she interacts both like in the inn and then later on at the manor that like there's some of that there. And like they very like Zara and Seth very much like they don't just come out and say things, but like they both just like they very much just imply a lot with like the way that they sort of act like and sort of like the way that they carry themselves through like conversations and stuff like that. Like I really like that like that's where Zara and Seth kind of have this like understanding of one another. Like Seth and Evetta are very much like we have like the arcane understanding, and Zara and Seth are very much sort of like, all right, like we both have a lot going on and we're not gonna like immediately say it all up front, but we're not gonna like be completely cagey about it.
Yeah.
And like similar like to Dag as well. Like Dag it's really more sort of a product of like Dag just doesn't really like talk like a whole lot, but just like very much the idea that like all four of us sort of like the connection for all four of our characters is very much that like we all kind of have a lot going on like in the background for like who we are
definitely.
and like what brought us all together. And I really like that. Like we're still like we're very much like our own people with our own stuff going on, but we're sort of seeing like even now like bits of that sort of like crack as we like out of like necessity, right?
Yes, definitely. Especially with the most recent session. Oh dear lord.
Huh? What?
Never mind. Sit down, Grant. Sit down.
Where's my daughter?
Hey, you just walk around screaming that. That'll work out.
Oh, man. But so yeah, so we've recapped session 1 for the most. I'm
You
just
did
gonna
it
call
too.
them episodes. You know what? Just whatever.
It's the same thing if you think about it.
Same thing.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's what I said earlier.
So yeah, episode 2, we are finally
So
in
2,
Durstwood, and
So two's pretty straightforward.
yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Most of it, like half of it, was being combat oriented ish.
Yeah.
There was like I think there was some good stuff in 2 though. Like
I
even
think
though
so
it was
too. Just trying to remember what happened. Yeah, there were definitely a few nice things that had happened. The funniest thing that I recall was when we found those 2 bandits who were raiding that house earlier.
Oh,
Yeah.
Seth's least proud moment. Remember that time I blew that guy's head off accidentally?
That was so
Yo,
funny.
Dag will take some credit in that too.
Okay, yeah, that's
I
that's
stole
fair.
the kill, but the thing that Seth's embarrassed about is that he did kill him.
Yeah, yeah. Those bandits, they were there, and you know, the only context we had was that there were 2 figures who were running
Yeah.
into a house because they were scared and everything.
Yeah.
So you know, Seth being as you know, trying to be as trusting as he is, he's the one who immediately called out, saying that you know we're not here to destroy anything. We're friends. We come in peace. Yada yada. And of course, the bandits reply back with, "Get your own house to raid. This is ours."
Yeah.
So,
And then immediately
oh,
it's
all
like,
right.
okay, yeah.
So
And
you're bad guys.
Yeah. And I think at that point, like, we
I will-
hadn't. Oh, sorry.
I will say, probably because you'll never encounter the bandits again.
Mm.
In case I was confusing why they said that, it was probably because they thought it was a deception. Like, it was a trick to get them to come out so that
Oh, yeah.
kill them.
No,
So
that's
they were
fair.
like, they were
yeah.
just, you know, they're about like, hey, if you're bandits, we're also bandits. All right? Let's just go our own ways. Is basically what they were saying.
And from Seph's perspective at this point, like the reason why like I flipped, I was like, all right, yeah, because like the next thing that I did was I just launched a firebolt like through the window, just to be like, oh, okay, no, you want to play? We can play. So I'm way scarier than you, buddy.
Yeah, but wasn't that
like,
done in a way to scare them? It wasn't like to hit any of them, right?
No, that's exactly it. Like at that point, because like one of the things we sort of like. What started the session was we found a mountain raider like on the outskirts of Durstwood before we encountered the bandits, and Zara and Seph sort of picked it over, and I think we both recognized the symbol of the god of war on the dude's like necklace, and
Evetta was the one who actually picked it up.
Oh, was it Evetta? Okay.
Yeah.
And Seph recognized specifically like who they were. Like I recognized like the gear. That this was like a tribe of raiders from the mountain that were like notorious for these like slash and burn, like leave no survivors style tactics that like basically blitzkrieg down from the mountains and just like devastate towns. And like the only reason that they don't have like a bigger presence is that they just sort of do it for like territory. They don't really care to like maintain any of the lands that they sort of come across, like other than like, you know, what they need more or less. And so we identify that person. So going into town and seeing these bandits, like we didn't get a good look at them. Like we just sort of heard them from the inside of the house.
Yeah.
And then when they called out that, oh, we're just looting, then that's when we're sort of like, oh, okay, like let's just beat the crap out of them. And then I think it was once we actually got like a good look at them, like Ryder, you described that like they just look like a bunch of disheveled, like regular like townsfolk. They just like and so I think
they didn't wear any of the same colors or gear as the mountain raiders.
No,
they didn't have gear. Like there was one dude that had a staff, and that's kind of like, whoa, where the hell did you get that, buddy?
They more or less look like they were actually just like peasants or just workers, and then they decided to just throw on some robes or garbs to conceal their identity, and then take some stuff so that they could, you know, have more resources.
Yeah.
I mean,
they were actually just trying to get by, of course, illegally, but still.
Yeah. I mean, just like in real life, right? Like a tragedy happens, like you're gonna have looters that just take advantage of the situation. Like that's just very much like a thing.
That was exactly it. And yeah, I thought it was interesting that, you know, Seph tried to make it clear, at least to the rest of the team, not to kill them. Only to scare them away, because they're just not worth killing. They're just trying to survive. They're people and stuff.
Yeah, like I think at that it's like at that point it's like
I didn't get the memo.
I did not.
I think I was already raging at that point.
No, exactly. It's exactly what I was gonna say. I actually really like that. I like the idea that Dag as like a barbarian, like he hears it, but like it doesn't register, right? Like the caller you're trying to reach is no longer available.
That was
like,
great.
Again, like unintentional, but it worked out. Like I like the idea that like Seph's like, all right, everybody, we need to be cool, and like Dag just takes a swipe, cleans this guy's legs out from underneath him, and then he's like, "Oh, what'd you say?"
Yeah.
Like I like the idea that like the rage sort of like the Kill Bill siren goes off, and like Dag just isn't there anymore.
Yeah, after Dag exits his rage, she's like, "Wait, haven't with it."
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, of course, at that time, I had already readied an action to shoot this person if they approached me, and was unprepared for Dag doing quite so much damage. And I shot a firebolt directly at this person's head and liquefied it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But-
so Evetta was, you know, she was both horrified, but also fascinated by the effects of fire on this poor soul.
I was gonna say, this is the first time we saw Seph use like real magic that wasn't like a cantrip. So
Oh, yeah.
you kind of got to see sort of like where his magic was coming from, like I guess like Firebolt's still a cantrip, but like a more offensive spell. Like
Right,
when you
yeah.
cast Prestidigitation, there's not really anything to it. But like Firebolt, like you can kind of see like when Seb's casting these like spectral gears and stuff like spinning around him as he's channeling like the magic or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And we were able to turn a bad situation into a mildly okay one, where after watching
And I
his
think-
partners face get Indiana Jones, we
never mind.
convinced the other guy to leave.
Basically, yeah, the other bandit
Yeah.
actually successfully escaped and stuff, so at least he was spared. Now, I'm curious, what was Zara's reaction to this whole thing?
That's a great question.
She was honestly meta-wise, I just went with it, but I feel like Zara was just.
I mean, because the previous day before that, you guys already had that, the slightly tense moment where Seth had cast light in his house, and Zara was like, bruh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big bro moment.
So I think, yeah, it probably wouldn't have as drastic as an effect again.
Yeah.
However,
I think contextually, turning a light on in my house and blasting a person's head off.
yeah.
It probably, I mean, like, Queenie, you could speak to this from Zara's perspective, but I have to imagine that it was probably at least somewhat, like, relieving that Seth wasn't, like, immediately just like, oh, I just blew this guy's head off. Like, he was also taken aback by it. Like, Seth was very much like, oh, fuck, I juiced that one, like, a little too much. That was not...
Yeah.
That was not the intended outcome I was looking for. And the fact that Seth had previously been like, hey, let them go. These are just like, you know, people down on their luck. And it was just like, I think it was clear at that point that it was an accident. Because again, from Zara's perspective, I'm just some dude she met. And then the next day, I'm just lighting people on fire.
Yeah.
But contextually, it's very much like, oh, no, that was clearly an accident.
I feel like Zara throughout, like, the sessions after, and just, like, in whatever, so far, she's
Cool.
She's off-put by arcane magic, but it's not like she's... again, not against it. It's just like it's like a niche that like it's looked down upon, and she kind of has to fight this like feeling that it's a bad thing because given her background, she was told that it was not good and it was not something that one should do.
Yeah, you know, plenty of maid probably, you know, as when Zara was probably growing up, you know, told stories of like the witches in the woods, or you know, evil wizard man doing bad experiments and all that stuff.
Yeah.
On children who venture too far away from their parents and things like that. And it was, you know, just a tactic to scare you. But it, you know, manifested into like an actual like a thing.
I think it's like the difference between like being like super anti-magic yourself versus being like, you just sort of have this like institutionalized idea that like arcane magic is bad. Like you don't necessarily like subscribe. Like if we want to like bring it to like real life, it's like you don't necessarily need to be racist to like feel the effects of like institutionalized racism, right? Zara doesn't have like the context to like understand that like the way that she sort of is like seeing arcane magic is like looking down on it. But I think it's all like, I think it's to Zara's credit also that she's like at least somewhat willing to be like, oh, okay, like this is happening and it's not, you know, it's not actually that bad. Like these people aren't out here eating babies and stuff. Like, like the first arcane magic that you saw like Evetta cast was her healing dag, and then like later on you see Seth also casting holy magic to like bless you guys. Like I think like from Zara's perspective at least, like, or at least like from what we're showing Zara is that like, hey, we're not like you know, we're not all that you like were led to believe we were type thing.
Basically
Yeah.
contradicting
You know what I
your
wanna know?
traditions.
What's Dag's opinion on arcane magic?
Dude, I asked this question.
Yeah.
I still want to know. I
I'm
also
curious
really
about
want
that
to
too.
know.
Dag, where'd Dag go? God.
Dag?
God dang it. Something I asked like session like 3 or 4 because like I genuinely like because Seth is so concerned about like people finding him out, like I need to know, like, is Dag gonna narc? Like, is Dag cool?
Yeah. Darn. Well,
And
Dang it, Dag.
we'll never know.
speaking of Dag, one of the first things that he does right after the battle is to basically search through the crates.
Yep.
And of course, he finds those bundles of bananas and takes them.
Yes.
Does he still have those bananas? I don't know.
We've got Chekhov's bananas, dude. It's gonna be like the last session, and it's gonna be like a nat 20 animal handling check to like avoid the final boss. And Dag's bananas are gonna be like a big pivotal moment. It's fucking great.
He's gonna be like, I told you.
These bananas were coming.
I know it.
It's like 6 months from now. The bananas are like a key item.
Oh man. This is great. Now, was there
But
any
yeah.
sort of like explanation for that? Like to his character or something? Like, because I'm curious. Like, what is it? Just something that
I'm gonna
happened because
be-
it happened?
Let me check something. What's his alignment?
If we want to be generous and sort of like back-explain it the way that we did like Zara's like noble heritage, the 2 gold thing, you could say that Dag went from being like Ryder said, like dead asleep in the middle of the night to all of a sudden these raiders are attacking us. Like Dag could just genuinely be like, I need to eat. Like I'm starving.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
I woke up
I'm
this morning and
hungry.
my house was on fire, and then I was filled with arrows trying to flee with my life. I need sustenance. Like I could see very much for like Dag's like fully in survival mode, right? You also have to like remember like he's coming fresh off of a rage, right? So he just like expended this huge like surplus of energy to go all
More or
out
less,
in
yeah.
this to go all out in this combat while being on death's door, probably having not eaten since like the previous night. So like I could see where Dag is like coming off of the rage, just still very much in this mode of like I'm going purely on instinct right now. I need to eat something. What's in those crates? They mentioned
Yeah.
food. I'm cracking them open. I need food. Like, I
Yeah.
can sort of see like the through line there.
That would make a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah. I think another great, like, that's a great character moment. I think the other great character moment that happens here is Zara wanting to, like, give last rites to the guy that we killed.
Basically, yeah.
Which
I
I
thought
liked
that
a
was
lot.
great.
But I also, like, so you could sort of see where, like, the push and pull of, like, Zara being this, like, very, like, by the books paladin who's like, no, we need to do like this person deserves their last rites. We need to bury them. We need to say a prayer. Like this is what we need to do. And Seth also as a holy person is like, yes, I agree with you, but this town's on fire. We need to go.
Yeah. Different
And-
priorities, yeah.
Yeah, and so we sort of say, I think like the two of us say like a quick little prayer, and we're just like, we got to keep going.
That
Yeah.
reminds me of when Zara was like, I want to bury him. And the DM was like, are you sure about that?
Yeah, I think was
Yeah.
Evetta the one who pointed out there was no shovel?
Yeah. Me as a player at this point, I'm just like, oh, I'm like, bro, we gotta go. It's like the bit. It's like the bit in the first Spider-Verse where Peter B is like, "You gotta get out of here, man." It's like we need to, like this, like these buildings are burning down, like people are
Yeah.
dying right now. But I like that like friction, right? Because Zara, like,
Yeah, that
Zara
was actually
has a
great.
job. Yeah, no, I thought that was fantastic.
That is probably the
Character.
best example of lawful neutral. Or sorry, lawful good. Lawful good.
Yes, no, 100%.
Yes, yeah,
That is the
definitely.
best, like, yeah.
we were actually talking out of character about it, and I brought up like a similar thing where it's like, yeah, that's lawful good, right? And I was telling Queenie, like, if she wanted to play it like even more lawful good, like she could have pushed back on Seth. And this is another moment where it's like I kind of would like to see like the other side of this, or like, what if Zara was like, no, we're doing this, or I'm doing this. Like I'd like to see.
I know
like
Queenie did actually kind of do that like later in the later sessions, but it was more of a joke.
But no, I like that. I thought that was a really cool moment.
Yeah,
where
I thought
Zara's
that was
like,
great.
we need to do this. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Like I get it. And then we sort of combat our way through town for a bit.
Well, okay, hang on. Before we did that, I wanted to bring up what was it? You guys investigated, was it a house? There was another house on the other side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where there was a priest with a specific talisman on him.
Yeah, the harvest god.
Was it harvest god?
I think.
I honestly do not remember what happened during that whole segment.
Yes, it was. Basically what happened was you discovered that these houses here were mostly living houses. They were just buildings for families or whoever to live in. You found the body of what looks like to be some sort of priest, cleric, whatever, religious figure who wore a symbol of ROI, the goddess of harvest, basically. And you discovered that was one of the things, and that's just there wasn't anything noteworthy about it. It was just like, okay, this is probably the god that these people worship.
Makes sense for like a.
But you found what was interesting. They had a unique slash mark across like their torso entirely.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's sort of like learned like the weapons that they used, and yeah.
I know Evetta could not identify the wound. So who was it who identified it? Was it Steph and Zara?
It was Dag.
It was Dag. Okay.
Yeah, Dag figured it out. He recognized the weapon. Dag mentioned that they were like using glaives. It's when sort of Seth put two and two together. It's like, like they attacked via like their cavalry units. They attacked via horseback. It makes sense they would use these like long slashing pole arms. Like it sort of aids their like whole like hit them hard, hit them fast sort of like approach to combat.
Yeah.
Was there anything else in that house? I have vague memories of there like being something like picked up or something else that was taken as well, but I don't remember what it was.
There was religious, there were like just religious items, incense, reliquaries, relics,
I got some
just little like artifacts, and that was it.
From some like random raiders that were there.
Yeah. There's a couple of bodies of raiders around.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was nothing really
nothing significant.
Nothing.
Well, I think the priest had a necklace, and then Zara picked it up.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah,
that's the
R-way. Or R-way. Yeah. That was the pendant that he was wearing. Yeah.
I'm actually curious on whether these specific items would actually become relevant later.
Like the bananas.
It's kind of why I ask about it.
Speaking of bananas, Dag, what were Dag's thoughts on Seth casting arcane magic?
Yes! We need to know.
That's your character.
Yeah, Dag, he'd probably, honestly, from his background, his story, he'd probably just think it's really cool that you can cast these types of just attacks on these people.
I blow a dude's head clean off with magic. Hey man, that's sick. Actually, honestly though, I like this because what's gonna happen is either next session or the following session, we're gonna get the point. The Seth Dag character moment is Seth's gonna go up to Dag and be like, "Hey man, your whole tail thing that you can grow is pretty sick." And Dag's gonna be like, "Hey man, that thing where you blow people's heads off is pretty sick." We're like, "Yeah." We just have like a bro moment.
Friendship ended with Evetta. Now Dag is my best friend.
But no, I like that the idea that like that's the connection between Dag and Seth is they just connect at like a very fundamental level. It's like, bro, that's pretty cool. Yeah, bro, that is pretty cool. Whereas like
man.
Evetta and Zara and Seth all have like, like slightly more like complex ways that they all sort of like interact and like agree with each other. Dag
Yeah.
and Seth just kind of like nod. It's like, hey man.
Yo.
Cool.
Yo. Dag grows a tail. Sheesh.
Oh my god.
Look, there's gonna be a moment where both Dag and Seth grow tails, and they're gonna have a really cool moment together. It's gonna be
man.
awesome.
That'd be great.
Speaking of which, I wanted to bring up Dag. Have you come up with a reason why Dag can grow a tail or a muzzle or claws, right? Have you come up with a reason why he can do that outside of that being the
Absolutely
mechanic? I figured.
So he grows a tail because when he gets so mad, he just grows a tail.
Wow, this character development's
Wow.
insane.
I know.
Wow. Well,
Well, I guess
hopefully
that's something
that
we
will
need to
be
workshop.
Fleshed out, fleshed out
Yeah.
over time as the campaign goes on. Who knows?
And by fleshed out, I mean I'm going to corner you right after everyone leaves and ask you about this.
Oh, that's alright. I'm ready. I'm ready to think of. I'm thinking of something.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So moving on. Okay.
Why?
So there was a. Oh, what? Why not? So there's
Did
a
you
fork
prepare
in
for
the
that?
road again. I may have this time. Yeah, so there was a fork in the road. One was that I'm trying to remember. I think Zara was the one who spotted that there were two figures in the distance. Were they
How
on
dare she?
horseback? I think. I'm trying to remember.
She spotted two figures in the distance. There was a horse. There was one horse next to them.
Oh, okay, never mind. So it was that.
Yeah.
I cannot remember what was the other fork.
The other fork,
Oh.
what seemed to be like some loud arguing and some
Oh.
loud, like heavy noises.
So meta-wise, I'm actually curious. I meant to ask you.
That
about
was the
this.
church.
That's my question.
It was
Exactly.
what was happening was the mountain riders were banging on the door.
Got it. That's what I thought. Okay. So
They were
yeah.
yelling to open up. Yeah, basically.
So we have this choice where we can either go to these mysterious figures or go towards this like loud banging, and we decided to go towards the mysterious figures. And we found plot at the expense of I don't know, like several dozen people. It's probably
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Steph's still trying to like compartmentalize that and like come to terms with the fact that we may or may not have indirectly led to the death of all of those people. I mean, not led to, but like we could have prevented it, right?
What
Like
the
it's sort of
lore?
I know, right? The Lord.
The lore.
But I do like lore.
Yes, lore is
I
really
guess
juicy.
So yeah, the lore that we
Yeah, no.
at that point we began to start like sneaking up towards these figures because we notice eventually that once we do determine that that's the path we're going down, one of them is a halfling woman is her
Whoa.
silhouette.
Yeah.
And,
Whoa.
Was it
That
dark brown
woman.
hair? Oh no.
and it matches and it matches the description of Grant's daughter. So we begin to sneak up, and we get to see another one of Seth's powers when Zara tries to sneak in full chainmail.
Yeah.
Show me your moves.
And I regret I didn't do a good enough job describing it like in at the time, and I'm actually gonna be better about it.
Yeah, how dare you?
But but the idea that like part of Seth's like main ability as a clockwork soul is that I can nullify advantages and disadvantage to bring balance to like things that are occurring. And so I began to see Zara like sneak off in her like full armor and stuff and being like, oh, we need to not have that happen. And so like Seth throws his hands up and the clockwork goes again, like nullifies like this like disadvantage that's happening because of her armor being so heavy. And then yeah, we sneak, and we hear some
Just like
plot
that.
stuff.
Yep, sneak. We do find out that, Evetta finds out that the building that they were able to reach had a burned down sign. But she was only able
that's
to
right.
make out like a few
Yeah.
letters on it, and it looked like it was spelling out Penelope's flowers.
Yeah.
Correct.
Ding.
Sorry.
Yeah, Evetta does bring it up. Now, what's interesting at this point is that I do want to bring up Evetta could not actually get a good look at the halfling woman. She saw the brown hair, the dark brown hair, that it was a woman. That was it. She didn't see anymore. She didn't hear anymore either.
Yeah, I think
So
it was
gross.
Seth that could overhear everything.
Yeah, Seth was the one who heard things. I don't know if Dag also heard anything, or Zara either. I
Dag
Don't
and
remember.
Zara heard you guys were being flanked.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
that's
right.
right.
That's right.
That was what was it? Yeah.
And so I didn't hear a lot because we eventually gave ourselves away. But the things that I could make out were references to Zindakir Pass, that the mountain riders were being used by, quote, an empire. And that they were sort of like, it seemed like there was an agreement between this empire and the riders, where the riders were being basically used as a weapon by the empire to further some plan that we don't know yet. And that the riders are like, what the riders get out of this is they get to like expand their territory and attack some of the other like raider groups in the area. And so that's sort of the agreement that the mountain riders and this empire have. And from like what we can sort of see at this moment is we don't fully know, but that Liliana, Grant's daughter, is involved somehow. Like, she's clearly complicit in whatever is happening. Like, she's just having this conversation open with the leader of the mountain riders about like these plans. And then I think at some point, like, one or more of us like goof some stealth checks.
Yeah, we stepped on a very loud stick.
Yes.
Yes. I actually don't remember who was it.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I
who
don't
it was
remember who
either.
actually
I
made
actually
the
don't
noise.
remember. I almost immediately wanted to say Zara because she's the one who has disadvantage on stealth check.
And
Yeah.
at this point, I couldn't see her either, and I can only nullify the disadvantage
Yeah, so
if I could see the thing that's causing it. So that might have been it. But yeah, so then they began to like multiple writers, I think, because we're essentially in this like, not like an alleyway, but we're like in this like town square-ish thing that's like flanked on all sides by writers, and there's like one exit that we can take. Like, we can't go out the way we came in, which is south, because riders are coming from there. There's like buildings to the west that we can't like make it through, and then there's the main group of riders to the north. So like the only way that we can like reasonably exit from this is through the east, which is like squeezing in between some buildings and hopping over a fence. And unfortunately, Zara's on the other side of the square.
Yeah.
So
Alone
you've got,
too.
yeah, you've got Dag, Seth, and Evetta all on the side that they need to be on to make this sort of like hasty escape. And then you've got Zara on the opposite end of this town square, who needs to sneak out basically into the open, right? Like, the way that it is, like, you have to go through like the main like thoroughfare between these buildings where the
Basically.
riders are like going. And so we concoct some sort of like hackneyed plan. I like prestidigitate like a noise to get their attention, and then Zara just like sprints like dead to the center of town, while
Zooming.
I think, yeah, while like Evetta, I think, is beginning to like get over the fence, and I'm behind her. And then Zara manages to make it to the other side. I use up my last like nullification of disadvantage at this point to help get her from one side to the other. The three of us hop over the fence, and then my favorite Dag moment at this point, Dag just fucking goes through the fence.
Yes.
Dag just Kool-Aid mans. I thought was fantastic.
Oh man. And so then now we are actually in the direction of the church. Because I think we're still running towards the east, and we come upon the church, which had like, I think most of its windows were boarded up, so you couldn't see in. And so,
And it was
I
a
think the front doors
curiosity.
were still open, right? Or
They were unlocked, but they weren't
unlocked.
open. I don't think.
Okay.
The thing I think that drew us to the church that was kind of interesting is, well, one, you've got two holy casters in the party, but
Yes.
Yeah.
the other thing was just the fact that it was the only building that hadn't been like basically burnt to the framework. It was the only thing that was standing. So we were kind of like, huh, that's weird. This is probably a trap, but let's go check it out. Because I think at that point, both Zara and Seth were like, we need to basically see if there's any people. Like, we need to do what we can.
Survivors. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we need to do what we can at this point.
Yeah. So like most of the
so-
team actually goes into the church to investigate what's going on. Meanwhile, Evetta is the
Except-
one. Oh, sorry.
I say except one person.
Yes. Except Evetta, but it's not because of her what do you call it? Discomfort. It's because she's paranoid. She's not sure if the mountain riders are still following them or not. So she
Also-
has her gun out.
Also, it's stanky in there.
Yes, that too. Very much
Ryder, why is
so.
it stinky? Why is it
Oh,
stinky
you
in the
know,
church?
there's 1, 2 dozen corpses.
Well, 1 or 2 dozen.
Just one, 2 dozen.
1 or 2
There's either 1 corpse or 2 dozen corpses. That's it. those are your options. Yeah, that was basically the. I have no idea how much does weigh on your character's conscious now. Basically, the decision was if you had taken the path that led to Liliana, you would have figured out that basically she's co-spiring with these mountain riders and that there's something greater afoot. If you went to the right path, you would have saved about 7 people if you managed to defeat every mountain rider. Because there were 7 mountain riders at the... 6. Because there were 6. Because if you remember, when combat started, there were 2 that came in and then 4 more... 7.
There were
Yeah,
7,
7.
yeah.
No, there's 7.
Yeah, 7.
There was 2
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
4, then the 1.
Then the 1, yeah. But if you had taken the right path, you would have no idea Liliana was here. She would have been gone the time you had. So...
No, I liked that. Like in hindsight, knowing that was the decision that we made. Like I like that from like I don't know, from a choice that we as the players have to make for our characters. Like seeing like with the limited information we have, knowing that we're probably giving something up, but not knowing exactly what it is. Like I like that.
Yeah. But right. So 2 dozen corpses.
This is where we found it was a dwarf woman and an old man, right?
Oh, not
And they
yet.
were like,
Not
yet? Oh,
what
no.
happened was that you guys had found a confessional in the back.
What had happened was you guys were investigating. You guys had found the confessional. You guys saw that the corpses. They were the mountain riders were. They were clearly using the church as a morbid, like, you know, morbid storage for bodies, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, how long each corpse was dead basically varied. All the way from, like, you could clearly see some were already in the middle of decaying to you could see some were still writhing. So as you guys were investigating, you guys found like a confessional. It was just a confessional. What happened was,
I remember now.
Evetta saw 2 mountain riders starting to come back to the church, bringing 2 more survivors. You guys hid in the confessional before you heard the 2 survivors whimpering. The mountain riders sort of commanded them like to get on the ground, and then that's how you discover those.
Yeah, and basically, like at that point, we couldn't allow them to just like kill these random innocent people. We burst through the door, and I believe yet again, Seth just cleanly took a guy's head off with guiding.
As he should, you know.
As it should. Yeah.
It happens in session 3 as well. It's 1 shot, 1 kill, just bam.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And when Evetta came out and fired her gun, what was it like? She actually blew the guy's jaw
Jaw off.
Yeah,
Yes,
she blew the
yeah,
guy's
that's
jaw
right.
off.
Yeah. I remember describing that like Dag or Zara was trying to hit the guy. I was like, he would smile if he had a jaw.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
That was great. Oh man. So yeah, combat happened in that stanky church.
Stink church.
Very stanky, desecrated church.
Turns out-
unfortunately. Yeah.
That wasn't the only mountain rider who had planned on coming. Or those weren't the only mountain riders who planned on going to the church, as the rest of their buddies bust in.
At this point, that's session 3, I believe, right? Because we killed the 2.
Oh, is that?
Yeah,
Was
we
it?
helped the.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure,
right.
right? 'Cause we
Yeah.
helped.
No, wait.
No, we actually we
No,
ended
no, it
after.
wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
thought
actually went
the-
through the whole fight.
I thought they didn't
right.
show up until session 3.
No, they were at the
No,
tail end
they
of
were
session
in.
2.
Oh, did
Yeah,
they?
they were at the
Okay.
very end
Yeah,
of session
yeah.
2. Yeah, because we had just finished picking off the 2 that were about to commit atrocious war crimes on these poor citizens.
Okay.
And right after that, there were 4 more that broke in.
Okay. And then we beat the crap out of them because we're awesome like that.
Yeah. And what's funny is that Seth was the only one who took damage that entire fight.
Yep. because at this point we were still. I need to address the listeners and writer directly when I say this is the tail end of session 2. We've been playing D&D for like close to 7 to 8 hours now, and we're still level 1.
Yes.
And I, as a player, am dying inside because I have used up both of my only 2 spell slots, and my 12 AC and I are like, I'm gonna fucking die. There's 4 mountain riders pour into this church, and I'm just like, oh, we're fucking dead. Like, we have no reason. Like, at this point, Zara's used all of her lay on hands. I think Evetta's used both of her spell slots. I've used both of my spell slots. Dag is down at least 1 rage, I think, maybe 2 by this point. And 4
Yeah.
mountain riders
Yep.
pour in. And in my head as a player,
okay.
I'm like, God damn,
Okay.
Riders out for blood.
Yeah. Oh my god. I remember
so
your
what's the
reaction.
issue?
Pretty normal. Pretty normal.
I remember your reaction to that whole thing.
Just
Like, are
your-
we supposed to die?
just your average level 1 fight, throwing 9 enemies at them. Yeah, what's wrong with
Yeah.
that?
That's pretty
Short
average.
rest, nothing. I'm like, holy fuck. And then so I'm the only one that gets hit there, but it's also because we're level 1. I have 12 AC. I'm going armorless, and I didn't take mage armor.
No.
The classic level 1 caster kit is 1 damaging level 1 spell, 1 mage armor, so that you can hurt people 1 time and you don't fucking die the second somebody blinks at you.
Yeah.
But I said, no, I'm a cool gamer. I'm gonna multi-class. So I'm gonna get armor. I'm gonna get armor at level 2. I'll just tough it out for level 1. One of my spells that I have that I actually haven't used yet is shield. I gave Seth shield because I was like, I'm not gonna take mage armor. I'm just gonna take the shield just to like see if if I need to protect myself type thing.
You fool.
And then, huh?
I said you fool.
And then by the time that I could have used the shield, I had already used both of my spell slots to guiding bolt, and we somehow managed to beat these guys. But our sweet
wow.
soft boy got hurt in the interim.
Yeah, well, that was pretty surprising. And then like in the middle of that fight too, the old man actually came out of the confessional, because what had happened was that when the 4 broke in, Evetta shoved both the old man and the young dwarf into the confessional to protect them and everything. Well, the old
Yep.
man comes out and is like, there's 1 more coming, and something like that. And so,
Yeah.
like right after Evetta finished firing off whatever it is she could, checked on the confessional, there was 1 more mountain rider, whatever, trying to get in through the back entrance of the confessional. Oh, what the?
Keep going. Sorry about that.
Was that the mountain rider? Just like, excited to lockpick this door?
that was the sound. That was the sound of the horse when Seth wrote the put the curtains on fire.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, Seth also came by and lit the curtains on fire and revealed that, yep, Mr. Man was trying to break in. And we
So
all
at this point,
readied everything that we could to just boom, boom, boom this guy down.
I tried to just scare him him away because at this point Seth is just like I need to lie down for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want another prolonged fight. I'm gonna try and scare the horse away. Unfortunately, this mountain rider was like a pony breeder or something, and he got his horse under control in like 5 seconds flat.
Yeah.
And so we murdered him.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
He walked in like a flying axe, a javelin, another magic bolt, a bullet to his head.
Yeah.
He was very dead.
He
Homie
was
got
extra
chunked.
dead. Yeah.
You showed up to the wrong neighborhood, motherfucker.
Oh gosh. So yeah, that was finally the end of that combat encounter.
Right, yeah, that was session 3 then.
That drained
The end of session
everyone.
2. Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. The start of session 3 is us looking at the old man and the dwarf and being like, we're leaving.
Yeah, basically. Well, Evetta wanted to know what had happened. Like, do they recall anything that had happened? Like, who are these people? Where did they come from? Yada yada, all this stuff. And
Yeah,
of course, it just happened so suddenly that
Mhm.
we couldn't really,
It was so
really
sudden
glean
in the
any
night.
information from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the night as well.
Yeah, the only real information we had, unfortunately, yeah, we did lose, like Ryder said, all the extra people that we couldn't save, but we, got these two. But we at least have, some information, coming from Durstwood, based on Liliana and everything. So,
Basically,
which
yeah.
I feel like ends up, it cost us, a few people, and, obviously that sucks. But I feel like it probably, it must have helped us somehow when we did eventually get back to town to, talk to Commander Remington and give him some, information to be like, look, we have some actual, tangible facts. This is what because otherwise, if we just come back to town with just, a bunch of people and we're just like, yeah, man, I don't know, some shit happened. I don't know. We have no information about the mountain riders. We have no idea what happened. We kind of have less of an advantage as far as negotiating. So it probably helped us more in the long run, but obviously the short term of standing in a cathedral full of dead bodies, we're like, well, this didn't work out, right?
Basically, yeah. Everyone's moral conscience just takes a hit.
Yeah. And so we're leaving town, and we see a very cool thing. Ryder, what cool thing do we see that absolutely scared the shit out of me?
Actually,
Oh,
hang
you
on.
know,
Wait,
Oh,
before
I'm
that, before we actually left,
But the cool
right
thing-
after the combat encounter, Dag took a step outside because he wanted to take the horses. He saw that the
Yes.
horses were
Very
unowned
important.
now, so they were free. So he was trying his best to tame these horses with his bananas for some reason.
Mhm.
And
You know,
as he was doing
horses were
that,
bananas.
he actually
You know
saw
what, Dag?
the
Let's do a
general.
quick character analysis. Why would Dag do such a thing?
Yes, yeah.
I just really wanted to be able to ride a horse. He just really wanted a horse, and the only type of food he had to tame them was bananas. So he was like, I just gotta use these.
You know what?
Yeah.
As silly as that sound is, I think that's actually kind of true, character-wise.
Yeah.
As in, Dag probably has not seen a horse in decades at that point.
I feel
He was
like it's
"Hey, a
important.
horse."
I feel like it's important to examine this with the context that Dag is a dwarf. He can't even ride a regular
exactly.
horse.
Yeah.
He
Oh, that's
needs
true, yeah.
a pony. He can't actually ride a regular horse.
No, but if you believe,
No, I think that's great. I think it's fantastic that Dag doesn't care. I think that actually gives a lot about his characters, and he's just like, yeah, I know I'm not tall enough, but I don't fucking care. I wanna ride these horses. I just think it's important to point out that you have this dwarf that barely comes up to the horse, and he's like, hello. Here's a banana.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Be my friend.
And I believe the animal handling role was somewhere in the ballpark of 3.
Yeah, it was really low. I was like, so
Dag hadn't yet invested in the real dice. That your animal handlings are nat 20s from here on out, bud.
yeah.
There we go. There we go.
you gotta believe me though. If I say not 20, you gotta trust it.
I don't know if we can. No, I'm joking.
But outside of that, Dag actually saw the Jedi.
Oh, that's
Jedi,
right,
yeah,
that's
the
right.
Jedi.
The Jedi?
Not the
The
Jedi.
Jedi.
Oh no.
Yeah, so basically, as he walked out, the general with his large horned pauldrons his ornate chest piece, his curved boots, and his horned helmet with a plume was basically sitting on his armored horse and was staring right at Dag and basically threatened Dag to the extent of something like that. He won't live to see the light again. He won't, or the extent of like the mountain riders will remember this. The general, though, realized the capability of the party essentially and decided that he'd be better off running away.
Now, I find that interesting that he didn't make any attempt to attack us at any point because we were exhausted. He could have taken that opportunity to kill us, but he didn't. So that must meant that he had
from his
another-
perspective, you just killed 7 of his boys.
Well, okay, true. You know.
Also,
Never
on the
mind,
flip
that's true.
side, he could have been exhausted too, right? Like,
Yeah, that is true.
He'd been attacking this town for like at least, I want to say, like the last like 4 or 5 hours. Like, maybe
Roughly,
not
yeah.
like directly, like maybe not directly involved in the skirmishes, but like at least like leading and like, taking care of his men and stuff, and probably also like getting into the combat himself too. Like, I could definitely see a situation where it's like, this is a fight we're gonna have another day type thing.
Mm-hmm. So with such an imposing figure, just like talking down on this little dwarf, what did the dwarf think? What did Dag think at that moment?
Yeah.
Because I
Bro,
didn't
you're
hear
interrupting my
anything.
horse taming session.
Honestly, though, like I'm just saying, I just kind of noticed him, but like he didn't really like as much as he threatened us.
So
Like-
yeah, Dag is probably used to getting threats like that. No,
Oh.
Dag is like, I mean, oh, dude, that was like the worst one-liner. What the heck was that?
Wait till I get on my
That's
horse,
how
then we
you
can
come
have a
up
horse v horse fight. Catch me on my horse, asshole. You got a multi-class Dag and a Cavalier fighter. That's what I want.
Oh, man, wow.
Oh man, that'd be really interesting. A dwarf cavalier.
Dude, that'd be sick though. Barbarian fighters are really good multi-class, and I like you never get to see Cavaliers really because you usually don't have like a lot of like big open spaces. But if we're not doing a lot of dungeons, like throw Dag on a pony, let's go.
Yeah.
Imagine a cavalier charging at you with the lance, and you're like, I can't even see who's riding the horse. Get the lance is like his entire height.
Amazing. Now, I cannot remember. Did Dag ever actually mention this general to anyone else? Because I don't remember it ever
He
being
did, I
brought
think.
up afterward.
I did,
Any
yeah.
of us have any
It was
ideas?
brief.
It was very brief, yeah.
Was
Oh,
it?
okay.
Yeah, he
okay.
basically walked in and he said, so I relayed what the general said. I think that was just it though.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, so guys, he tried to threaten us, but he ran away.
Anyway, my horses don't like me.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that's what happened actually. By the way, guys, the general talked to me. Anyways, yeah, the horse didn't really.
the horse had
bananas
clouds
are
above his
busted.
head. Didn't like me. I have to jump on the back again.
Wait,
and see
what did the
hearts
general
pop up.
say? Oh, he just like said like some mean stuff. Anyways, like the horse. Does anyone have like anything else I can tame the horse with? Like, we're just back-splaining. Dag is just really into horses now.
Oh my god. Because I know it comes up again later too. It's just
Mhm.
great. That's great. But yeah, so that happened. Tried to ask the two surviving civilians, and then
Civilians.
civilians. Then we finally see what Seth saw.
Big scary thing.
The big scary
Big-
thing.
This would have killed us, like, bar none.
Oh god.
Oh yeah,
even fully ready at level 1, like we would have all died.
that was a neon DM sign of please leave the area.
We were going to.
Yeah, that was a good idea. And of course, Evetta, not understanding the flora and fauna of the world outside, she's like, "What is
Do
that?"
you know? Have you looked at what an owlbear looks like?
No, I have not.
They're very
Dude,
cute.
Cute's a word.
Oh.
They're probably I'm gonna be honest. They're like my favorite animal.
Oh, no, they're
In
incredible.
D&D.
Like they're
I
like
love them.
top 5 like D&D monsters. Like they're so good. But yeah, so we're going to leave town, and we start to hear and see a monster of sorts. And both as a player and Seth as a character knows what this is. We see bear prints and feathers, which can only mean one thing. And I don't think Seth ever explains it. I think Seth just says we need to run. And at this point, Dag's still like dragging like the horses along, and I think that's when like Seth like goes dad mode, and he's like, "Leave them. We need to go. Like we're going to die if we stay here." And then we're
that's what it looks like. Wow,
they're so big.
Yeah, they're big. They're bigger than bears, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, holy cow!
They're like a grizzly IRL is like the biggest bear, and owl bear is like twice as big as a grizzly bear.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, how dare you? Why did you do that?
The cubs are adorable, though. I will say, owl bear cubs, adorable.
Oh, they are really cute.
So yeah, we're chased by an owl bear out of town. As we're running out of town, we also start getting shot at by arrows. Because there's more mountain riders hiding in the trees outside, but luckily, we feed them to some
We're in the
owl
trees.
Yep, there were more owl bears.
We sort of take advantage of the situation that the owl bears are just like, "Hey, there's food here," and the mountain riders
the owl bears are like, "Hey
there's
guys,
owl
free
bears."
food.
Yeah. So we sort of let those two like sides sort of duke it out, and as we're going, like we just go full sprint at this point, and our old man gets grabbed by like one mountain rider who's not distracted, and without I love this because we all roll initiative. We're all ready to go. Everybody's set up. Seth has first initiative, and I do like 18, like I do like almost max, I think.
Yeah, you did over his health.
Seth doesn't stop running and just pinwheels, and that's my last spell slot. We leveled up in between sessions. So at this point we're level 2. So I go from 2 spell slots to 3 spell slots. So I used my only spell slot to just one full guiding bolt at this guy, and just I got nearly max damage, blew his head clean off, and just grabbed the old man and kept running. Didn't even stop.
That was great. Oh, that's you.
That
was fantastic. Oh, yeah, that was his head exploding.
Yeah.
I know Evetta was also carrying the young dwarf out because she was not keeping up at all, so she needed help.
Not with her little legs.
Yeah, no. She really needed help. So, okay, question. Would Zara actually recognize an owlbear? Do they exist in the old world?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure, like,
Now,
how different
the question is, would she have come across one? You would definitely have heard of them, but would you have seen one is a much more different, because you lived in a city.
Yeah.
And it's maybe you would have gone into the woods or into the plains. Maybe you would have gone out far. Maybe you wouldn't have. It's your character. I will say at the very least, you definitely have heard of them though.
I thought you probably would have seen one because there's a time between when she left the city and the time there's a gap between when she left the city and when she sailed for the New World.
Makes sense.
Okay.
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 Okay. So based on that, I'm guessing the city that she came from is landlocked, doesn't have its own port?
No.
Is that what you mean? Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, I was just curious because, I also want to know about the other character's perspective on this whole spectacle as well. All these events that are unfolding and such. Because, whenever we're going through these sessions, it's blazing speed. We are just going through the motions, flying through it, everything. We don't really get to hear everyone's side of their story and such.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, like, what did you guys think of it? Like, what did your characters, like, see? What do they understand? And, like, what do they think?
Yeah, Dag.
Oh,
So you saw a bird. That was a bear and an owl. You're like, God dang, what'd you think?
You know what?
More times
no
than
one
XS.
died. He'd probably be like, that looks like a mighty foe that I'd have to go against one day.
I need the Dag Owl Bear wrestling match.
Oh man.
That could definitely happen. I would say that during your pit fighting days, Dag, you probably would have seen one. I'm not gonna say you would have gone one against yourself though. That would have been way out of your skill range. But you definitely like, while you're like, you know, down there in the ring, you're waiting for your turn, or you're just on the benches. You would have seen like a guy go up against an owlbear.
I feel like for Seth, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I've read about them and I've heard stories, and I never want to actually fight one type thing. It's just like, like they're one of those creatures where like they're common enough, but they also have enough of like a history surrounding them that it's like, if you know, you know. And it's like, you just like the paw prints and the feathers, like something clicks, and it's just like pure fight or flight. It's just like, I know what happens when these things attack people.
I just realized they would actually be roughly the size of the rune bears in Elden Ring, wouldn't they?
Yeah, no,
They
yeah,
would,
yeah.
They actually would be.
100%.
That is actually how large they are. So.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's why it's so terrifying. And they have fast movement, don't they? They're fast.
Yeah, no, owlbears like move like
Regular-
40 feet around.
Yeah, regular
they're
bears are
large.
fast.
Yeah.
Now imagine the bear twice the size of that.
Oh dear God.
That's one of
Wow.
those things where it's like it's the equivalent of like IRL, like meeting a polar bear in the wild. It's like, you're dead. Like there's nothing you can do.
yeah.
Whatever you have done in your life to wind up in this situation, you
chose
just
this
need,
path.
yeah, you just need to make peace with the fact that your loved ones are probably never gonna see you again.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, you are just not walking out of this the same person.
Well, it's a good thing that we never encountered them. I mean, we never actually fought them. They were distracted by
Yeah.
something else entirely. Cool. So yeah, now we can actually like make a mad dash back
We'll see.
to her. Oh no.
Yes.
So we make a mad dash
Oh no.
back to Rodenfire. Oh dear. And I know Seth basically directs the old man and the young girl, or young dwarf, where they could probably go. Yes. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, damn.
Josh.
Yeah, he directs them where they could go to basically retire for the night or whatever. Oh, did we reach there no, we reached there midday.
Yeah, it was midday.
It was midday,
We traveled
Well.
through the night. Yeah.
On your guys' way back from the town, you did see
Oh,
something
yeah.
interesting.
The smoke.
Oh,
We
that's
didn't
right. The
saw the
billowing of
smoke.
smoke. Yeah,
Yes,
we
the
never
billowing of
investigated
smoke.
that.
No,
Oh.
you
No,
never
it's
did.
fine. It was those Carmelis, and they died, and they got what they deserved. Moving on.
Well, what was the
Lord.
direction of the smoke?
It
I'm
was
trying to remember.
towards. It was like in between Durstwood and Llewellyn Manor.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Like-
no, you guys went back to Hronfar, right?
We did,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it
was
was
it to the north? As
It
we were coming into
was-
Hronfar?
no, it was towards the south, towards the sea.
South.
Oh,
Okay, never mind. Completely
okay.
different. Darn.
Oh, I thought that those are the Carmeli Knights, the camp that we came across. That wasn't them.
I'm gonna say it was not. They were not Carmel
Okay.
Knights.
Interesting. That's
Wow.
what I had assumed that was the camp that we ended up finding on the way towards the Llewellyn Manor. That's interesting. I mean, again, at this
Oh.
point, for the listener, no spell slots. We're all
Yeah.
we
We are
haven't
just
had a
wiped.
we
Can't
haven't had a
stress
single
enough.
long rest yet. This is now session 3.
I'm. Should I? I mean, yeah. You know what? I'll say it because they were in proximity of Hronfar when it got attacked. That camp was a Dawn Crusade camp. They were
How
knights.
dare.
That was a camp of the Knights of Dayston.
Oh.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't have context for that, but Seth probably does. So you said that, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah, Evetta
So-
would have been angry. Oh, wow. Dang. Missed opportunity. All right. Well,
I actually
But,
would
I
have
mean-
loved that because I would love to see the dichotomy of how Evetta acts around the Knights of Dason versus
Yeah.
how Seth acts around the Carmeli Knights, which
Yeah.
has to just be like polar opposites.
Yeah. yeah, most likely polar opposites.
You even caught me off guard with how much you interact with the Carmelian Knights.
It's because Seth knows that like they have nothing on him. Like Pséftis Morfi doesn't exist. Like they like
Yeah.
I'm not a person. Like they have no idea who I am, and the person that they are looking for can literally never be found unless I make it like so. So
Yeah.
that's what, and like that's like obviously it's getting like a little meta for the other players, but at this point like everybody kind of has an idea. We're probably gonna explore that more in the next session. Once the characters have a moment to like, have a breather and like interact and talk about like what is going on with Seth. But like that's sort of like that's actually why I really liked that scene where Seth interacted with the Carmeli Knights, because that is sort of his whole like approach to them is just like it doesn't matter. That's why he acts the way he does around Voltus, and why he scrutinizes Voltus's actions so hard, because Seth knows that he has nothing to worry about when hiding from the Carmeli Knights. But if he like was like Voltus or like other people, he'd have to be extra careful. But like I don't need to be. I can be kind of out in the open and not worry about it because they have no record of who this person is. Like Pséftis isn't real. When did I interact with the Carmeli Knights? Was that session 4?
That was 4.
Was that 4? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now that makes sense. But yeah, that's like that's something we'll go over. But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite scenes to like role play out, just because you got to really see like how little Seth kind of regards the Carmeli Knights, because from his perspective, like they're idiots. Like they're talking to like a known like a wanted fugitive, and they have no idea, and they'll never know. Like it's actually like not possible. And there's only like one way to get me to not be me. And even if they did that, they still wouldn't find the person they're looking for. So like there's nothing to worry about. But yeah, I'd love to see that way that Seth is versus Evetta meeting her like equivalent, basically, and like how that goes comparatively.
Oh my god, yeah. I feel like I can't quite confirm this, but I can almost guarantee that it might not go well. Period. Because Evetta is not that tactful at all with her anger sometimes. I don't think. We'll see.
Well, one of the things that I'm personally curious about, and like you can neither confirm nor deny, does Evetta have her own rite of passage in and out of Dason, or is she did she sneak out?
You will find that out.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that
happened.
now that Seth knows that like you need a way to get in and out of Dason, and the fact that Evetta is from there, he's like, interesting. I also like that Evetta just like, if Evetta is, this just sort of fuels Seth's like disdain for like the current like ruling authorities of both Dason and Carmeli, because if Evetta is in fact also a wanted fugitive that they're looking for in Dason, she just walked through their fucking front door in broad daylight and they didn't say anything. Like if Seth finds out that Evetta is like also being hunted because she like ran away from Dason, he's gonna be like, wow, okay, yeah, your people are just as big of idiots as mine, all right.
Why you guys at war?
Yeah, it turns out overthrowing the world government will be a lot easier than I thought.
I will say though, so I actually listened back on that one segment where we finally got through the gates. I was surprised at the outcome. Okay, I wasn't there because I had to step out for a second, so I didn't know what actually happened. Yeah, I was very surprised because I thought there was going to be more friction before we could actually overcome it.
I told you Grant would get us in.
I will let you know. Again, this is something that only Evetta would know. Which
You
is why
can DM it to me
I'm saying
if-
I'm too lazy.
Okay.
Everyone just remember to forget this.
I got
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I got
That's
you.
how it works, right?
Clip it.
So yeah, basically, the higher the like essentially like the upper class is essentially consists of like the echelon, the Silver Imperial, and the Dawn Crusader, right? They're all like very tightly knit. So as soon as a guard sees a document allowing passage, they immediately want to just let it go through, right? Mostly because if they go against it, that could mean that their funding essentially gets lost in a way. So that's essentially why they're very like, oh yeah, all right, you can go in.
Got
Well, then
it.
what about the commissionary?
The commissioner.
Do they have any say in this?
No, the commissioner is funded by the echelon. They're essentially
Okay,
under
I
the
see.
echelon, but middle class.
Okay.
But no, they're kind of in between. They're like upper, like middle class. They're like right on like they're like right in between the middle and the like upper class sort of divide. The commissioner kind of can serve as a way to actually get into and become like a noble, and into the high echelon. But while you've heard a couple stories, and you do remember there was one person who you were vaguely aware of who was in the guild who did actually end up becoming a noble. It's not that common.
Okay. Okie dokie.
Sorry.
All right.
I just really I like the idea of Evetta interacting with the Knights of Dason. Anyway. So we make it back to Roddenfar. We get the old man and the dwarf to basically show them the inn's here. Go take care of yourselves. And then do we immediately go to the town guard? I can't remember if we do or if we go to bed first.
We immediately go to the town guard.
Okay. I think basically because we want to be we need to tell them what happened because...
Yeah, because there's no telling
bad.
whether the mountain riders will attack Roddenfar next.
Yeah.
So we want to warn them first.
Yeah, also the idea that the longer we go without telling them, the more we implicate ourselves.
Basically, yeah. Yeah. That was important too. So yeah, we had to make our way to the guards.
It's a mix between a barracks and a police station kind of thing.
Okay.
So there's a front desk and an office for officers, which there's realistically only one. That's Remington.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so this is also the first instance in which our weapons are taken away.
Yeah, users that need weapons.
Wow.
Oh man, yeah, I really should have thought about that.
That's
shame.
Well, now your fists are deadly. When that happened, you were level 2, buddy. Calm down. Calm down with your 1+2 damage.
That's good damage.
Hey, to be fair, that is infinitely more than Seth can do with his bare hands.
Yeah.
So I'll let Dag have that one.
I don't know if this is also the first instance where Evetta's anxiety is shown.
Yeah, we didn't invite you.
All right. Evetta was never invited.
Showed up.
That's right. Go ahead.
She has no
So
guns
Evetta
now.
gets her gun taken away, and Remington.
Remington 650.
Right. The team eventually beats finally Commander Remington, not 500, but just Remington. With Seth taking the lead and everything, they basically discussed the incident in Durstwood with as much details that they could, at least with what they could have gathered from all of that, trying not to seem too suspicious about the whole thing. During all this, I could not remember how skeptical Remington was at first. I can't remember what cards we played during that conversation to get him to believe us.
I think we were honestly I think we were pretty honest about it, and I think a lot of it was just him being he took a lot of notes, and he just he didn't let on very much. He kind of played it close to his chest the entire time, which I thought was interesting actually. And I was kind of intrigued what the other party members thought of because Remington's the first big NPC we've really talked to at this point.
Yeah.
We've met other ones, and Liliana's a shadowy figure, and Grant's a minor NPC, but as far as big people that were sort of engaging with in like an official capacity. Remington's like the first real NPC that we've sort of gotten with, and I was curious what everybody like thought about him, because like at this point, like at least for me, like Seth was like, I don't know how much it's not, like how much I can trust this guy, but how much I can use this guy as well. Like how useful is he going to be to us, and how much is he going to impede us? Because obviously this is like a problem. Is he going to be like an issue? Because like Steph's trying to figure out if he's incompetent or not, basically.
Yeah.
So I was curious, like what initial read the other party members, like as like in character, thought of Remington.
Evetta was terrified. She was straight up
Goliath.
terrified.
I feel
Yeah,
like
Remington does his head almost hits the ceiling while he's standing. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
damn.
that's fair. Goliaths are huge.
yeah,
big-
they're
a big
huge.
Goliath.
So yeah, Evetta didn't really know. I don't know if Evetta has met many Goliaths, honestly. But I know for this particular case, she was terrified because she wasn't sure like what sort of power he held over them,
Yeah.
and her gun.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fair actually.
Her gun's her baby.
It was mostly the gun, but
Mostly the gun, yes.
But also big man.
Yes. Very scary.
Big man take gun. If
Oh,
that's
that's But yeah, I'm curious too.
yeah, what did Dag and Zara
What
think?
did Zara think? And Dag, yeah.
Zara was more like comfortable around him. She didn't really feel like intimidated per se, because I feel like she's been around people of
I think, yeah, clearly. See now, in a couple episodes later, Remington.
What happened? It was actually coming.
Oh, wow.
No, I feel like Zara, with like people of power, she kind of just is like, she has like this automatic like form of respect towards them, since like she values order. So it was kind of like she wasn't intimidated, but she was ready to just like listen to what he had to say.
I was
And
gonna ask
respected
that
whatever.
actually. Does it sort of play into like Zara, like not only being a noble but also being like a knight, like a paladin? Like,
Yeah.
does she sort of have that sort of innate like, oh, okay, like this is like Remington has that like military man sort of like air about him, where he's just like he's all business, and so she sort of like responds to that.
Yeah, I think Zara has this like kind of respect for order in a way, like that she won't question a lot of things when it comes to power, because she kind of believes that, oh, he has power for a reason, and he has like, you know, and so she
Yeah.
kind of has respect for him in that sense.
This campaign's gonna end with Zara and Seth having to kill each other. I can already
Oh,
see it. Or at the very least, Seth having to like challenge Zara. On
Oh,
Alright,
no.
Dag would back you up, Seth.
Hell yeah, Dag, let's go. It's
Hey, bro.
3v1, Zara. You gotta bring it.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
I'm just-
3v2 if we include Remington.
Oh no.
Oh, man.
Remington's dead, bro.
No.
You Lord, just stop, guys.
This is the Lord. Yeah, no,
Wow.
Dag.
No,
I don't think Dag would have felt intimidated, because I think he would with just the scenario, I think he'd understand, and
I
also
could
he
take
has
him on.
like everyone is with him anyway. So if Remington were to try something, I think Dag would be ready, but I don't think he'd really be that intimidated.
Let's say, where does Dag sort of fall like on the idea? Like, it seems like a kind of like a going theme, like with the campaign, is like the ideas of these like inherent power structures, right? Like you've got like these two kingdoms and this like third party, and like you've got Zara and Seth on like either ends of like how they like respect and respond to like these authorities. I'm curious, like how does Dag sort of view like these like more authoritative figures like Remington, like what Remington represents, right? Like this like this codified like order, these like systems of government and stuff. Like I'm curious like where Dag sort of falls into that and if it plays into his backstory at all.
Well, I mean, Dag, a slave master did try to buy you. So
I guess that
you
is
can factor
true.
that in as much as you want.
I think for the most part, and I think that's his take on it.
Well said. Well said.
You know,
All
it's
right,
just-
such lore.
The
More dropped.
lore, guys. Oh, jeez. No, I think to maybe help answer, I think part of it is that Dag has been separated from society for almost his entire life. He's not really felt any kind of a form of a large-scale government in that sense. I think on some level he doesn't know what to think of them in a way.
But in like a much more personal like Dag versus the authority, like obviously like being like somebody who like was in fighting pits and like was potentially like, you know, part of like a slave deal, like would he inherently have like a bias against these like authoritarian sort of figures and structures? I'm curious. It's something like it might not just be like a direct question, but it's something that like I'm interested to see like explore, right? Because it sort of seems like, you know, that's like something that's sort of inherent with the game, at least so far, is just the idea that like there's these big looming powers and our characters are kind of just like caught in the middle of it.
Yeah, Dag.
honestly,
What's Dag's take on authority?
so
Somebody.
it can be good and it can be bad.
Dag's a
Wow.
libertarian. I like it.
Quite insightful.
Centrist
Thank you,
Dag.
Hopefully we can explore some more of that later on.
I like that all of our characters are sort of on these like this like sliding scale of like where we sort of stand to this authority. And I think like the way that we sort of all sort of like interact with Remington for the first time and how we react to him is all interesting. Like Evetta has that like initial fear response, and Seph's immediate response is like, how competent are you? Like, are you useful? Like, what do you even do here? And Zara's just immediately like, okay, like this guy's got a plan. He represents something. He stands for something. Like he's gonna do it. And Dag's just sort of like physically like sizing him up, like, like I don't know. I think it's another moment where like it's a good way to like get an indication of like all of our characters again. Like you can sort of see like how we all respond to the same thing and where it like puts us.
Yeah, it pans across each character's thoughts, and it gets to Dag, and he's just like, I could probably take you on.
You're pretty tall, but I could go for your shins.
Now that I'm thinking about like authority like figures,
How dare you?
I feel like okay. My bad, count. I feel like we could get, like maybe a part of Zara's like character would be like that she realizes that there's people on both sides of the spectrum, because I feel like Zara herself has like kind of gained from this system because, you know, she's a noble, and so she sees it as a good thing because it's only done well for her. And I feel like maybe throughout the campaign she'll realize that it's not like unicorns and rainbows for people below the ladder.
Wait till we get to Carmeli. Seth will have some words for Zara about how the system really works. But like, I feel like that's like I think that's a really great point, Quenie. Just like, yeah, like from Zara's perspective, it's like, yeah, of course the system is good. Look at how great I, an upper class white woman, have benefited from. Like, it's like one of those things, though, right? It's like, yeah, of course you fucking like it. And so I like the idea that, like, in the same way that Zara is sort of open to like seeing like hey, like arcane magic isn't like, you know, what they told me it was. Like people that use it aren't like, you know, these baby eaters. That she's willing. I like that Zara seems willing to confront her biases. I think that's really interesting to me personally. Like she still like follows those biases and like this, like, you know, like her initial reaction to Remington is authority, good. But I like that like sort of meta, like the way that you just discussed it, like that it seems like she would be willing, or at least you as a player would be willing to see how she sort of like interacts with it when she gets those thoughts challenged. I think that's cool.
I feel like meta-wise, that's why she had to run away from like her family and like that, and Irving, yeah.
Yeah. I like that all of our characters sort of like, you know, interact with that in a different way and can sort of like give each other like an like introspection into like their point of view and stuff, like as they sort of grow. I think that's real cool.
Yeah. And of course with Evetta, like it just feels like for most of her life she grew up with fear in a way. So the authorities are very authoritarian where she came from. So there's just no telling when you'd get punished. Evetta has seen both the good and the bad from these figures and stuff. More of the bad though, which is why she's more fearful of them.
Yeah, I feel like when you compare like Evetta and Seth are probably on like the same side, where it's like we're both against the authority, but we're both like, we take like different like approaches to it, right? Evetta probably, actually, we're backfilling again. Evetta would represent to Seth like the type of people that he wants to protect, the type of people that like Voltus's actions threaten, right? Like Evetta seems like the type of person who would probably be content to just like slip away and want to live their life in peace and just like, I don't really need to fight the system. I kind of just don't want to engage with it whatsoever. Like it has hurt me in a way that I do not feel comfortable with engaging it again. And then on the flip side of that coin, Seth is like, no, we're tearing it down. But I like the idea that like Evetta is that like, she's that pure side of like, you just want to get away from these like inherent like issues and just want to exist. And I like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Writer, did you know when writing the campaign that you were, you know, sort of developing a story about the inherent like structural issues of society and the authority?
It's very interesting how it panned out that way, you know?
Was this sort of your
I find
plan?
this to be amazing, honestly, because a lot of this was just on the fly, developed on the fly.
Yeah. But it's sort of just like where all the characters sort of fell in and like where the story is sort of going, which I don't know, I like. Like maybe it's inherent to the world, maybe it's pure chance that it happened this way, but I don't know, I like it. I feel like at the rate we're going with like all the like stuff that we're just sort of discussing and talking, the entire next session is just going to be RP. And I'm 100%
I feel like it too. I already have some ideas on what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then they're mostly RP.
Well, like the big things I want to see going into the next session are like, we need to like get Evetta to talk about Dason, and we need to figure out like what's going on and what our plan is. I assume there are some questions about what the hell Seth's got going on and why I can be Grant now. And I also want to like examine the idea, like how does Zara interact with Dason? Like as a paladin who is confronted with this like holy city that is just like completely corrupt with like Dason is actually perfect because Dason is authority gone completely ass up and bad for the citizens.
Yeah.
And now they're aligning themselves with an evil foreign power. Like I want to see Zara confront that in real time.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that too.
Like
now we'll have to think about that.
But no, I feel like next session can definitely just be like our characters just like sit down at an inn and just talk for 3 hours about like, look, we need to like figure our shit out. And also we all have questions for each other.
Essentially. Yeah, I really would like that, honestly, because I would like to learn more.
I'm down to describe Sev's breaking his bones over and over again.
Oh my god, I still found that to be incredible because I never thought of shapeshifting that way at all. I've always thought that a puff of smoke, ooh, okay, I'm changed.
Yeah,
Some wispiness or whatever it is, or some
do a spin in the air.
yeah,
No.
right.
A little sequence.
Ballerina spin. Zoop, there we go.
Your whole outline goes white.
I was telling Amby that like part of like what influenced that and like why I was interested in it is just like I don't know, like IRL, like I like body horror and I like the idea that like no, like legitimately though, like a shapeshifter would be terrifying. Like a shapeshifter would be terrifying. Like
Yes.
obviously we're in like a world full of like magic and dragons and shit, but like there's a reason like Seth doesn't actually care about modesty. I don't think changelings actually give a shit, but it's more so like it's not like, oh, hey, I have to change my clothes. I think it's more like you guys don't want to see what happens when I basically turn my body into clay for 5 seconds. Like it's not gonna be pretty. So I don't know. I like that as like being how shapeshifters actually like work. Like it's not pretty. It's not just like it's not magic. I just am this way. Like, you're gonna.
What's funny is I actually don't know how much that would actually horrify Evetta just from hearing it alone. Because Evetta does have a bit of an active imagination in a way because she's an engineer. She invents things and creates things on the fly. So when she's hearing all of these sounds behind her, it's just like, what the heck is she thinking about this? Is it like, how bad is it?
Well, I like the idea that like it's probably pretty bad because like it'd be different. Because if Seth was shapeshifting into like an elf or just like changing his like appearance or something like that, it probably wouldn't be that bad. But I have to change from a human to a halfling. So I literally have to break every bone in my body and resize it to be half as big. Like it's probably horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably moments where
image.
like an arm is like snapping and then shrinking. So there's like a second or two where like Steph has like a halfling arm and then a human arm. So,
Oh god, yeah.
Or like do all the bones do all the bones in my upper body just liquefy first, and so I'm just this like floppy skin puppet standing on legs, and then that reshapes, and then my legs break.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like there's a bunch of different ways like it could happen. I don't know. I like that kind of shit. It's like it's neat and vaguely horrifying.
just vaguely.
Just vaguely, yeah. Anyway,
we got a little off track.
That is for like our
Sorry, that's
session.
Next session.
Yeah. So I guess like the latter part of this session 3.
Let's say this session wraps up
Remington.
Remington. Yeah. We met Remington, told him about what was going on. He actually agrees to do some investigation on Durstwood. However, he basically lets the team know that because they're still under suspicion, they are not allowed to leave the town until the investigation is over and such. So that's basically why we don't really get to go anywhere else. We just retire for the night, I believe.
Yeah.
And of course, Dag is free to sleep on the floor again.
Yes, my floor is getting ever crowded.
I don't remember if anything else happened.
The rest of the
around that
session
point.
was aside from the combat at the end. Actually, no, did we even start the combat, or was the combat the beginning?
No, yeah, we did.
before?
We did.
Okay.
It was at the end, yeah.
Got it. Okay. But yeah, aside from the combat at the end, like session 3, like we just sort of like chilled in town for most of the day, or for like a couple of days, because we like I think it was like downtime where we basically just sort of spent it trying to find Grant, and we didn't for like a couple of days. Like we had to go back to the town square multiple times, basically, like in search of trying to find him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't until we were like, at some point while we were exploring the marketplace, trying to find him again, we noticed this strange trail of blood. And that's basically what led us through the alleyways to where he actually was.
Yeah. And yeah, so we find Grant like fully dead up against the side of a tree. We get the attention of some local guards who, thank fucking God, because this also yet another thing that could have like completely implicated us if we're just standing around with Grant's dead body.
Yeah.
Like we find some guards, I call them over with thaumaturgy, and rip to the first guy, takes an arrow directly to the dome.
Yeah.
I think you said you crit him, didn't you, Ryder? Like that was just like straight
nat
up a
20,
crit.
yeah. Yeah, the bandit rolled a nat 20 on him. And I was like, well, he's very dead.
Dang.
But yeah, so one guard immediately bites the dust. We enter combat, and combat goes well for some of us.
Maybe
I think
one
it
of
was
us.
Only one of us. Yeah.
Seth continues to just
oh my
take
God.
people's heads off left and right while you guys throw javelins at each other and shoot boards.
Oh my God. I did find it great that Seth actually motivated that other guard pretty well. Motivated him so much that he just charged right up to the house and tried to break into it to get to the bandit.
We don't talk about what happened afterwards.
He lived, I mean.
He lived
did,
because of the extra HP that I gave him.
Yeah,
I believe he was at 1 HP, so.
Yeah, I gave him
Oh,
5. I gave him
wow.
5 extra.
Oh my God, that will to live.
So
yeah, he like tried to charge through the door, tried to break it open and everything. Well, it didn't work out when there was a bomb right behind that door, which I'm surprised that existed.
This is why artificers are no good. They just put bombs behind doors.
Yeah, I apologize for my on behalf of my fellow artificers.
I can't believe you're just putting bombs behind doors, Amby. Wow.
Oh, why didn't I think of that? Oh, you're right. Wait. But yeah, like the unfortunate thing. Oh no, you died. Oh
No.
MusicSquid. His phone probably died. That is
so
unfortunate.
Zara and Dad, how would you like to explain what happened when you guys were trying to jump in the window and hitting each other and all that good stuff?
The thing is, Zara's head was not, in the right space. Maybe he was. Maybe he was thinking about Commander.
Are you making this canon?
No. This is not canon. This is not
The
canon.
Lord, guys.
No, the Lord.
The Lord.
No. Zara was just snoozing. Okay, she thought she was.
Just snoozing.
She was
She was just snoozing.
I think Dad's thought process would have been like, this guy in the window, he's really annoying. I could probably make that jump.
Oh my God.
You almost did. Well, actually, you rolled a nat 1, so I could think of it like twice.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
listener,
I was thinking that
Dag
one twice.
a few times really try. Okay, so the bandits were actually up on the second floor. Okay, they were archers. They were flinging arrows at us. Dag, this little dwarf, is trying to jump up a whole entire floor to get to this window to climb in. Like, I wasn't sure what to
realistic.
expect. Yes, very realistic, I guess. I wasn't sure what to expect. But yeah, he fell quite a number of times. Because he kept rolling nat ones.
Fell at quite the number of
That wasn't even
times.
the end of
indeed.
it.
Yeah, how many times? Was it like 3?
I think I fell like 3 times, maybe. Or
Oh my
maybe I think I
God.
got it on the 3rd one.
Yes,
But-
he would jump up, and then he would break the frame, and then he would try to jump up again. I don't know if anything else broke, but man.
Welcome back, Squid.
Hello, Squid. MusicSquid temporarily
My phone
perished.
died.
Oh, that makes sense.
I did not realize that my phone battery was so low. So I'm back on the crappy laptop. I will try to be quiet so as to not have horrible lag issues.
Oh, that is
Oh, man.
unfortunate. Oh man.
I did not realize I had like no battery left in my phone. It just straight up died.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, I'll chime in where necessary, but I'll just chill.
Yeah, it's okay. We don't really have much left for episode 3. So yeah, we were just talking about how Dag really
Mostly just
tried
you guys
to
can
jump
play
up the floor, a whole entire floor, to reach the second floor, where the enemies were. Did not think to try to go through any of the doors. I mean, one of them could have been trapped, so I don't think he would have known. But yeah, that window was the only point of entry that he really wanted to get into.
It almost
Meanwhile,
worked out.
not sure what. Yeah, it actually almost worked out. Not sure what Zara was doing, but apparently she was thinking about Commander Remington.
That's pretty usual.
You know what? I ship Zara and Remington. Let's go.
Nice, the lore, it's real. It's canon.
We need the Zara Remington fanfic. Let's go.
The Zemington, wow.
Remington fanfic. Yo, fire up your AO3 accounts and your Tumblr fan art,
Oh,
and let's get some Zemington.
Emmy, can I commission you for a Zemington?
Oh my.
That would be a hard no.
hard nope.
So anyway, yes. Explosion happened, the guy almost died. Evetta did actually make it to the guard and tried to heal him as best as she could with her magical bandages. Was not able to recover his limbs, unfortunately, but he did heal up a bit, so he's a bit better. Just can't do as much anymore, and of course his days as a guard are over. Right, so back to Dag and Zara. I don't know what happened with Zara's aim, but she was trying to aim for the bandit that Dag was fighting. Well, I guess you can say she kind of missed. Or maybe she didn't actually miss, and Dag got in the way.
Yeah, no, I think Dag just got in the way.
What? I don't think so.
Dag just moved just enough to get struck in the back by Zara's javelin, completely blocking it.
Zara healed her.
Yes. What else happened?
Hostages were discovered.
That's right. Seth did actually go through the... Yeah, Seth went through the house that had been exploded. Evetta did she did actually inspect the scene to see what the heck even happened. Why are these bombs even here? And according to her, it seems like there were a lot of explosives there for no good reason. And it should have taken the ambushers quite a lot of time before they could actually set up all of these bombs in this specific location. So it seemed like they had been there for quite a while before we found them.
I think eventually we discovered from I forget her name, but the hostage lady that I was talking to, I think she eventually let me know that they had been there for over a day at that point. They broke in at some point. Presumably they probably got there around the time that we left from Durstwood. They were probably there from around that time. I'm just piecing this together now, but yeah, she had sort of alluded to the fact that they had kept her prisoner for a while, and that was evident on her wrists and stuff as well. They had been bound for at least a day, if not more, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was found alive. In the other house where Dag and Zara were, they found two hostages. However, one of them was dead. So one passed away.
Were both.
The other was
They were both. What had happened was that there was an internal discussion with the bandits, and one of the bandits ran away. If you remember, there actually were 4 archers, but one of them ran away, and it was the house that Dag and Zara were investigating, or they were in. The bandit that ran away slashed the 2 hostages, and then ran away. That's what happened. That's why one of them was on the brink of death.
Oh, okay. Did Zara actually resuscitate that one?
Yeah.
You can only get one.
Yeah.
They were both slashed, and Zara was only able to get one because the other had died the moment she got up.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't exactly remember what happened to that hostage that we saved.
I'm gonna admit, I think Dag and Zara and I completely forgot about the hostage. The when we had to pick back up the session. So
that's true.
The hostage just kind of just left. I don't know. I don't even think anyone got their name.
They just despawned.
They just kind of.
Wait.
I'm
No,
waiting.
actually, I remember now. Okay, so I actually remember from episode 4, when we finally had the guards come over, they actually retrieved the hostage.
Yeah, they retrieved the hostage that Seth was taking care of.
And the one that was upstairs, because I remember there was a point where Evetta asked Dag and Zara if the doors were booby-trapped or anything. And so they went to investigate. Of course, Evetta didn't get any kind of response, but she saw guards were coming over. And, Evetta didn't know whether the guards had known that the doors were trapped or anything. So we went to the south door, found out that there were a bunch of furniture in front of that door. So Dag moved the furniture aside, guards went in, and I cannot remember who it was who mentioned anything, but there were 2 guards. One of them was talking to us. The other one went upstairs to retrieve the other hostage, who was still alive.
Yeah.
The lady was to the far west of the scene with Seth.
Yeah, I think at that point, like when the guards had arrived, I basically I started talking to the lieutenant that was there at the time, and I had more or less told Evetta go check up on Dag and Zara. We haven't heard back from them. I think it was around that time that Dag had seen the one person or had noticed the trapdoor, and I was sort of holding down the fort talking to the lieutenant while one of the minor guards escorted the injured guy and the hostage off the scene basically, and I said some parting words to both the hostage and the one guard, and then was sort of relaying as much as I could to the lieutenant while you guys were over in the other house, discovering the trapdoor and everything and disarming. Well, Zara, I think this is the beginning of session 4 where Zara handily disarmed the the trap.
Yes, gracefully. Yes, gracefully disarmed it.
These are all adjectives. Yeah, session 3. Yeah.
That's where session 3 basically ended, when Dag saw that someone was going through a trapdoor.
And session 4 was very serious and very put together, and nothing silly or goofy happened whatsoever.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was no intimidate check that led to a bunch of dumbass bandits being round up.
Yes. Tune in, listeners, to episode 4, where it was very serious.
There you go.
All good. Nothing bad happened.
I need to know, Ryder. Obviously, you're not going to get into a session 4 recap, but I'm just curious. Was Remington supposed to die there? Or is Remington just going to be fine if we didn't go to him?
So what happened was, I was going to make it so that if you guys went across, so basically the prison was split up between the north and the south block. You guys were at the north block.
Okay.
Basically. If you guys had went down to the south block, you would have to go through this central hallway where there are stairs that lead up into the barracks. You would have heard fighting as you went past it. And the choice was, if you investigate the fighting, you would have found that Remington is currently being attacked. If you decided to skip it, you would have interrupted the Dro and Liliana trying to put the guards to sleep.
Got it. Okay.
Oh.
If you had interrupted them, I would have rolled and see if Remington would have barely survived or would have died.
Got it. Okay.
Oh.
And we sort of split the difference, saved Remington, and encountered both Liliana and the trap.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis shenanigans. All right, cool. I figured it was something like that, but that's just another situation where it's I want to know how this goes if we don't, what happens doesn't happen type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I don't intimidate these fucking 4 morons into...
That was great.
I enjoy that all of, I don't know if I've rolled persuasion more than once, and I don't think I've rolled deception even one time, but both of my intimidate checks, banger. Just both of them. Seph's not supposed to be scary. Seph's supposed to be super chill.
I mean, you managed to punch that one bandit and knock him out. So
with a book.
Yeah. Sorry.
That was because I knew that there was no other way for me to deal any damage to him, and you were sort of alluding to the fact that he only had a single hit point, and I was like, cool, that's all I can do. I literally just need to hit him.
Hey, it worked out.
Yeah,
It worked out in the end.
Goofy ass. But yeah, it was a fun little recap. Not quite a session, but just sort of fun discussing like character stuff.
Basically, yeah. It was honestly a lot of fun just hearing everyone's perspective on the events that unfolded because, you know, as I said, everything is just flying past. We don't really hear everyone's thoughts. So this is pretty nice. A good way to open up.
Yeah.
I like not only just like seeing into each character's like mindset, but also just sort of like being able to out of character discuss like the broader implications of the campaign and just sort of like our characters and stuff. Like I like being able to like drop the curtain, like just have like table talk basically. Like we just drop the curtain, we're not in character, and I just like discussing like, you know, what's sort of going on from like an outside perspective and like where we want to see the characters go and sort of also like what the characters are thinking and stuff. Like I don't know, I find shit like that fascinating.
Yeah.
Because like you say, like in the moment, like it is moment to moment. You're in character and you're having to like, you know, think of it not only as like yourself as the player, but also as the character, and then make that split-second decision. Like, this is what will be happening here. So you don't really have a time to think about like the implications or like what the other people are sort of thinking. Like, you don't get that chance to sort of like discuss it, like really. Outside of like the instances where you do have time to discuss things like in character. But like if you're in the middle of like, you know, like a big discussion or a combat or something's happening, like you don't have a moment to be like, well, what does Zara think right now? Like, you know, you just sort of have to like go with it, and then like in character like look over at the other person and be like, what's going on over there? Which like we still managed to squeeze in, but I think it's like it's a much finer line, right? Like I don't get to just ask like, you know, like you or Quenie or Snow and just be like, all right, yeah, what did you think at this moment? Like, I like being able to drop that facade for a second and just like talk about it, kind of chill.
Yeah, this was a really nice just being able to see. I mean, I'm tempted to now go through the next 3 sessions just to see what everyone thought at certain moments. You know, I like Dag and Wendell. I think we don't really know. You know, we got a little bit of insight from like Zara and Evetta, but yeah, I don't know. This was fun. This was good.
It was enlightening in a way, just seeing how everyone kind of perceives their character.
A lot longer than I thought it would be, but wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a combination of we're discussing like somewhere between like 10 and 12 hours of gameplay, and then also just sort of like shooting the shit in between that. Like,
yeah, basically.
Like, because we're not just, and not even just like shooting the shit. Like, we're also just sort of like discussing like broader campaign stuff. If we were just discussing like each like session, it probably would have been super like you know, just a much faster pace. But we're also discussing like, you know, where do the implications of this moment go, and like also like, you know, what's some other like backstory stuff that like fuels this interaction. Like we're adding a lot of like context, and also like, you know, thinking about like, you know, what it means for like the characters in the future as well. Like it's not just like this happened, which I don't know. I like that we're discussing more like in broader terms about like the scope of the campaign as opposed to just like episode by episode.
Yeah, I actually like the fact that you brought up what could have happened at these various forks.
Oh,
because,
that's my
I never
shit.
thought about that.
I love that.
Just the thought that something else could have happened entirely if we chose this path. It's just insane.
Yeah.
I think that comes from my background as a DM, because well, that's because like and like Ryder, you could speak to this, like even just like with this campaign, like your other like what else you've done, like you plan for like all these different things because you kind of have to like have like a broad idea of what's going on, but like fundamentally you also sort of have to just be like prepared to totally ad-lib like 3 hours and just like pull everything out of your ass. And like I think having that perspective as a DM, like there's a lot of branch points. Like for us, it might only look like 1 or 2 instances where there's like forks in the roads, but from like a DM perspective is like, no, there's like 30 different directions to go off to in any instance.
Absolutely.
So I feel like going into it. Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. When you guys joked about sailing to the old world, I was like, nope. I was like, oh, that's gonna be a lot of ad-libbing. Oh man.
Oh boy.
Because I
I'll
set
be
up the old
honest.
world to be this old, it's been around for like millennia. So there's a lot of history. So when Zara, or I guess in general, you guys joked about that, I was like, you sure can't do that. Hold on, what's our next session? Oh, it's in 3
Please
months,
don't.
guys.
I think one of the big. I'm curious, actually, does anybody have like moments where your character could have done one thing or the other thing? Like we're talking about these like big pivotal moments where like as a group we could have gone down one path or another path. But were there any like specific instances where your character was like deciding between one or two things? I already know what mine is, but I'm curious like other people.
I honestly haven't given that much thought.
Okay.
Same, but I think the manor really made me think of like where I really wanted to take Zara.
Nice. Mine also happened at the manor. Ryder, can you guess what my decision point at the manor was?
Not really, actually. Was it with Voltus?
It was whether or not I fought Voltus right there.
I see.
See, I much prefer the way that it went, where I just like get my friend's bracelet, threaten him, and then leave. Like I prefer that because I think that plays more into Seph's character. And I think if I did fight him, that would represent like a very different direction for Seph to go. That's like still on the table, but I don't think that's where he's like at like right now. Like I think there's a point where that Seph is who I'm playing, but right now I think he's still very much like, you're a problem, but I can't bring myself to address you yet because you're not worth my time. But that's where like if I ever see you again, like it's on site. In the Wendy's parking lot.
Only in the Wendy's parking lot.
But yeah, I'll leave that up to you, Ryder. However, or if ever you want to bring him back, I'm letting you know, player to DM, I will make good on my threats.
This will be interesting. Holy crap!
But maybe he gets put in a situation where it would be beneficial for me to not kill him. Like it's one of those things where it's like,
I'm just saying, there's a reason he's a master in conjuration, and there's a reason he has a bodyguard following him. So
that's fair.
We'll see.
But no, I liked that moment, and that for me was the big like, at what point does my character like change? And it's obviously like still way too early for that. So I was like, no, we're just gonna, give me my bird friend's bracelet. I'm gonna leave you alone.
It is fun to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I'm about to bring up has nothing to do with my character, but it's it's meta-wise, where I honestly should have.
What?
Oh my god.
Sorry.
I should have said something about Wendell.
Don't.
Okay, I guess I won't.
In what regard?
Am I allowed to say?
Yeah, go ahead. No, that was a joke.
Okay, so the painting, and when he appeared, was the first red flag that I noticed, but I didn't say anything. And I regret not saying something about it.
What do you mean? What about the painting was a red flag?
So Wendell's
Did I miss
painting
something?
features, him with his golden flowing locks. Oh, not really golden, but he's got those flowing locks and beautiful skin. He had light skin. The guy we were talking to had tan skin.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, that's fucked up because Seph would have noticed that, but I didn't. I have spent multiple sessions describing the fact that Seph, and now you know why, like systematically studies people's faces. Oh, that's irritating. Oh, now I'm mad. Ryder, how dare you betray me like this? I personally just missed that, but Seph 100% would have caught that. I study everybody's face in case I need to be you.
Yeah, because I noticed it immediately. when Ryder brought it up.
Mad.
But I was
so
like,
mad.
oh, maybe he was sunbathing. He was probably just chilling outside, just tanning out on the beach. So I didn't bring it up, and oh my god.
I fucking wish you did. Goddamn.
Yeah, I'm so mad that I did not bring
No,
it
I'm
up.
not mad at you. I'm mad at Ryder. Seth would have noticed. Seth would have noticed.
Yeah, that was me foreshadowing that the window you saw walking out was not the same window, and that both of us would later reveal later on.
Yeah, dang. And I was just like, oh, there must have been some time between these paintings and him. Like,
that could have been possible, but no, they were actually different ones. I wish I did more of it, and maybe it would have popped out more. I don't do a good job of explaining this, but the face structure was also different. In the painting, the cheeks are sunken, the eyes are more sullen, and the jaw is more prolonged. The window you saw has a much more rounder face.
Seth would have noticed, DM. Seth would have noticed.
Dang.
All I do is study people's face so I can take them. Also, I would be professionally upset because I would be a way better Wendell than this asshole.
Yeah, but I think I like brushed under it. I was like, this window he has tan skin, but he's like I didn't really do a too good job explaining it.
Rude ass. No, yeah, that's great. I didn't catch that at all. Fuck.
I'm guessing everyone else didn't either.
No.
My original theory, and it still actually stands, which I love, is that the Wendell was a dragon. But then you're like, oh, I had to roll to see if he knew Draconic. But now that I know that this isn't the real Wendell, Dragon's still on the table.
Dragon's still on the table, guys.
Also, you've now seen the full gamut of Seth's languages. I speak Draconic, Elven, Dwarven, and Common. So I've got all my languages out now.
That is interesting. That is.
I would
genuinely.
Cool. I would love for Seth to learn more, but I don't want to waste a feat on linguist. But I would love, I love the idea that Seth has like 8 languages in his back pocket so that he can turn into all these different races and not have to like worry about speaking Common all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would love.
At the same time, that is a very like role play heavy feat, and it may or may not pay out.
No, and like I'm already quote unquote wasting a feat on actor, but that at least has like some gameplay like benefit as well.
Yeah.
Because then all my deception checks are real spicy.
I'm actually waiting on you to start using your deception sort of stuff during combat.
Yeah.
Is that even possible?
Not really in combat, but I like where your head's at.
God dang it.
Yeah, that would be a bit difficult. It would have to be like, I could see deception working in moments where you guys alerted the mountain riders in the second, where where they're like, wait, someone's here.
Yeah,
I could see that being a case of deception, but deception is more like lying, kind of, right? In a way.
No, I mean, I could still fear, because like, so the reason why changelings are so cool is like you don't even need the part of the actor feat where it's like you can mimic people's voices, because changelings can just change their vocal cords. So if I just hear the way that like mountain riders talk, I can just change my voice to be a mountain rider voice and then try and deceive them that way. Like they don't even need to like necessarily like, I don't need to do the whole like change my whole appearance thing. Like if I'm just trying to like deceive somebody vocally, like I can just do that, which I think is really cool. But I think another cool moment that could have happened at the manor was like Seth kept mentioning like I can go and like sneak through here. I was gonna transform either into Wendell or just like a guard and just like walk through as like a guard for the manor and just see what I could find. Because I could have like very
that.
easily just like changed my face and then re-upped this guy's self on myself to like look like I'm wearing guard uniform at that point. And then if I turn into Wendell, that probably gets awkward. But
Yeah. Whoops.
Which Wendell do I turn into, DM?
So, well, now
Yeah.
I'm curious. So I already know that, well, meta-wise, I already know that Seth does not like Wendell. Period.
I don't like the fake Wendell. Because he's
Okay.
kind of
Do not
Yeah.
like fake Wendell. What does everyone else think of fake Wendell?
Why?
Is this like before they know he's like before he knows he's fake or after?
Like before you knew he was fake.
Yeah, before.
Yeah. I just thought he was an idiot.
Oh, yeah, what would-
after that wine experience, I think that
Yeah.
was like this guy's just kind of weird.
Yeah, I feel like Zara would have been like, wouldn't have disliked him, but after the wine experience, he was kind of just off put to like, what is this dude's taste?
Yeah, I think that would think he's kind of suspicious, maybe.
Yeah.
I think Wendell also kind of represents kind of like what Queenie was talking about with Zara, where it's like Wendell is this dude who is like hugely profited from the system, and unlike Zara, who's like kind of like more down to earth and chill, Wendell's like a pompous buffoon. Like
Yes.
he's like he's like the bad end of this is what happens when people take advantage of the system. Like he's just a fucking he's Musk. Like he's
Yes, yeah.
Whereas like Zara's privileged, but Zara's like at least somewhat aware of it and kind of chill. Whereas like Wendell's just a moron, or at least this Wendell's a moron.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm interested to meet the real Wendell, possible dragon. Fingers crossed.
Oh, that would be cool.
I wanna like Wendell. I feel like he could be a good character. But, like, I don't know. The fake Wendell kind of. He's a little dumb.
I will say the fact that real Wendell is using a like fake duplicate of himself to like masquerade like his like real operations, that automatically just gives him bonus points in Sep's book because he's like, hey
Yeah.
man, I get it. Like obviously like we don't know, but I feel like that's probably like it's probably a combination of like you need a face there, right? Like you need
Yes,
somebody
yeah.
to hold down the operation and look like everything's on the up and up. So that like, you know, if Carmeli Knights or if guards or if like, you know, if people come knocking, you need to have somebody who is presentable, and like the fact that he's an idiot works to his benefit because he can immediately disarm any suspicions. It's like, well, why would we suspect this guy of doing anything evil? He's a fucking buffoon. Like he's fine.
Yeah.
Like it sort of works to his advantage that this double is a moron. And then at the same time, like if anybody does like try to like, you know, act against Wendell, you've got this moron here to take the fall for you as well, in like a physical capacity if an assassin comes around. So it kind of works like both ways.
Yeah. So very well done. Well done, DM. Very well played. I should have said
You're well
something. God dang
thanks.
it.
Steph would have noticed.
I guess it also
You
doesn't
can't-
help
I-
that we also had Dracula just like wandering around on roll 20.
So good. That was so funny.
Listen, we have Zemington. What is it? So we have what? Sindel West.
Look, man, you know, as a changeling, I don't think Seth cares. It's just like, whatever, man.
Oh. Good stuff. Good stuff. But yeah, really looking forward to our next session next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Hopefully, I'll be ready because this is Evetta's home turf. So I'm
Yeah,
both nervous and excited to dive a
I'm
little bit
so-
more into her backstory.
Oh, I'm so ready. I'm so ready.
Think about what
Yeah.
Zara's gonna.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
actually really curious to see how Zara would react to a lot of the stuff that's happening in Dayston.
Again, yeah, I like the idea of Zara having to confront, like, this is what happens when super strict holy ideologies, like, go too far. Like, they're lawful, but they're, like, the bad end of lawful.
Yeah.
Like, you get to see what
Lawful
happens
evil.
when... Exactly, like, you get to see
Yeah.
what happens when pure law gets stretched to, like, the far end. Like, what it actually, like, represents.
I feel like the more we talk about like just meta stuff, the more I feel like I could really take Zara into like chaotic good or like
The lawful good to chaotic good switch, like, I think is great because you get to see, I don't know, I like the idea that you get to see a character like realize that this is probably just me showing like my personal biases as like a person and not only just a player, but just like, you know, I clearly have some issues with like authority in the systems. Like,
Yeah.
I like seeing, and I like the idea of addressing that like in character, like watching somebody have to realize like, oh fuck, like I can still be good, but I can't be good in this way because there's
Yeah.
flaws here.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That would be
We-
really interesting if
we
Zara
really
makes the
shall
switch
see.
here. Because, like, oh, holy crap.
All I know is I need a dark corner or a bathroom or under a table or something.
Evetta
so
will
that
try
I
to make sure. She will try to secure a spot.
I feel like the second like I realize that I don't have to be Grant the entire time I'm inside, that's all Seth can think about because he's just replaying the conversation that the two like travelers had as we were like making our way towards Dason, and he's just like, if the wrong person sees me, I'm so fucked.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I just imagine you're changing, you're switching forms in the bathroom, and like the bartender comes by and knocks on, is like, "You okay in there?" And then hears like bones snapping and skin stretching. He's like,
I had some
everything-
bad rations, I'll be fine.
I don't know why I want to imagine that. As you're telling him like you're fine, you're like, your vocal cords are switching.
You get this like really like creepy uncanny valley where it's like halfway between Grant's voice and it's halfway between
Yeah.
Steph's voice, and it's just this like horribly distorted monster. That's it.
Oh, man. You need to find some voice effects for that.
One of the things. I gotta get a fucking Go XLR or something.
Bartender walks away like, I need to lay off the fire water. I'm here.
But no, I like the idea, sort of like the concept that I had, because I've played like other characters that sort of mess around with like, disguise self and like changing themselves and stuff. And
Yeah.
I like the idea of Seth being a shapeshifter that's not really good at being other people. Like Seth's really good at constructing identities for themselves and like pretending to be like one specific person, but like the minutia of like, oh, I need to pass myself off as like a bunch of different people is like maybe not something that they're great at right now, and like that's where the actor feat comes in. It's like they need to like work themselves up to be able to pretend to be all these different people. And like the big thing is like, oh, I can pretend to like speak and act like Grant, but if anybody asks me a single personal question, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Like if they just ask Grant what his birthday is, Seth's like, take me away. Just unmorphs right there.
Oh, man. All right. Well, exciting things abound. This shall be
All
the
right,
end
continue.
of the recap. Thank you very much for listening in. And we hope you all... Oh, I'm sorry. We
You're
hope to
welcome.
see you next time. What the heck?
See you later.